Welcome back to the From the Bench podcast. As always, I'm your host, Eric, and with me today is not your co-host, Trevor. Instead, we got a special guest host, and that is my buddy Adam Lund from the Moncton Wildcast Podcast.
Hey, man, how's it going?
Good. Adam's a big sports fan, loves his hockey, loves his football, even though his teams both are a little questionable. That's fine. But like I said,
not fan. So questionable. Not so questionable.
But I said, Adam has always been a good guy. He's always listened to podcasts. We've always chatted about sports. He enjoys the local junior hockey team that you guys hear us shout out all the time on the podcast. So, it's always good to have Adam here. And Trevor just had something come up. So I said, you know what? Want to record an episode, get some of this stuff out here for a little bit of hockey and some NFL draft prospects. So I said, look, I'll get Adam on. We'll get Trevor back on for next episode and we'll go from there. So we're going to start off.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here, man. Thank you. I've been listening since you guys started this in the middle of non-sports pandemic.
Yep, great time.
And I've messaged you many times with my own opinions and said if you need a guy to tag in, I'm ready to go as long as it's not a game night and or recording night.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to jump on and talk a little bit of hockey and football.
Well, there we go. And it's true. Adam's been very good about all this stuff. And even when I had questions at the start, he had his podcast for the Moncton Wildcast up before I had this up. And every time I had a question, I'm like, so what do you do to run a podcast? And he's like, here's what I do. Trying to try this. And so we've kind of bounced stuff off each other. But also started a pandemic sports podcast. Great idea for me and Trevor. Yeah. But anyway, so first thing first, we're going to get into some hockey. Big thing is Adam is going to give us a little bit of, usually we talk about the Leafs and we talk about the Avalanche because that's mine and Trevor's teams. But today, Adam is actually from Alberta. So Adam's favorite hockey team is actually the Edmonton Oilers. So
it is, yeah.
Want to get your opinion, Adam, on how the Edmonton Oilers have been so far this season?
Well, first of all, when you ask questions about podcasting, I had to pay it forward because Ray and Andy from First Down Sports, they helped me get this thing going, so I'm paying it forward with you. Yeah. As for the Oilers, I mean, first of all, it's good just not to talk about the Leafs. Let's get that out of the way.
Yep.
No, I mean, the season's kind of gone, I would say the way the season usually goes for the Edmonton Oilers. Starts with a ton of hope. They get slow out of the gate for 3-4 weeks. Everybody wants to burn it down. And then Connor and Leon figure it out, and they kind of drive the bus. I think the biggest thing this year with the Oilers was the fact that we didn't have Mike Smith going. Yeah. And he was out, not sure why, for almost a month and a half or so. We had to rely on Koskinen and Stuart Skinner. So Koskinen had to play a lot of games, or as I call him, Koska lets him in. He's not a good goalie. I haven't liked him since he started. And the fact that we gave him $4.5 million.
I was going to say, gave him $4.5 million. 15 games into his NHL career, where it wasn't like he was lighting the league on fire.
You know what? Here's how that negotiation went. Koskinen said, I want 3 years at 4.6. And Shirley went, we can do that per year. And he went, yeah, let's do that per year. I meant 3 years, 4.6 total.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what Shirley was thinking. And that's why he's no longer GM. But I mean, a lot of other fans didn't see this season coming for Mike Smith. I don't think Mike Smith saw this season coming for Mike Smith, but he's a goaltender, 14-3. He's got 2.34 goals against average. Can he be in the Vezina conversation? I don't know. It's awfully difficult with Vasilevsky down in Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
But I mean, Connors and Leon are clearly our MVPs, but I mean, we're not second in the division without Mike Smith going the way he's going. So it's a good time. It'll be interesting to see what we do in the trade deadline, because there's that whole teams are going to have to wait for a player for a week. Who do you go get? The Oilers don't have a lot of cap space because our former GM doesn't know what cap space is.
Nope.
So it'll be interesting to see. I know I tweeted it on one of Elliot Friedman's tweets. If there's a guy that you want to get for the Oilers, and I don't know how you get him, it's a guy that we know kind of very well living here in Moncton now, and that's Connor Garland from Arizona.
Yep.
If the Oilers could pull that off, that's a guy that could easily play with McDavid and could play up and down the lineup. I don't know what it would cost you, but I got no problem making that deal for Connor.
It's new regime down there in Arizona. Obviously, Connor's the best contract in all of hockey. I used to joke around that was possibly Nathan McKinnon making $6 million to be right up there in the Hart Trophy conversation every year. But when you have somebody like Connor Garland out there, being like a top 20-30 guy in points in the NHL, and he's making $2 million a year or $1 million a year, whatever it is, for the next
something silly like that.
And I think this year and next year, or maybe it was last year and this year, but whatever it is, the guy's grossly underpaid. But that's what happens, right? When you're a 5th round draft pick, you're not expected to do a whole lot. Yes, you've shown a little bit, but they're like, is this a splash in the pan? And Connor is probably like, you want to pay me $1 million to play hockey? Sure. And if I play really well and I put up a lot of points, like I've done everywhere as I've gone, other than the 1 year in the AHL, you're going to give me lots more money. Perfect.
Yeah, he's making $775,000 this year.
Yeah.
And he's leading the Arizona Coyotes in scoring. So 100% if you could get that guy, I don't even care what you give up to get him.
Yeah.
As long as we could somehow get that. I don't think that'll happen. I still think we need defensemen, but
you guys are gonna have you got to root against Pelche coming up here soon. So trying to get a little bit of Moncton juice.
I've been on a few. I was on another show out west, and I'm so excited for Pelche to play in the NHL. I'm just not excited for Pelche to play for that team. I am reveling in the fact that they're a tire fire.
They are a giant tire fire.
Like they can't even beat Ottawa.
No, which is bad, by the way.
I don't see how.
If you guys aren't,
I don't see how they don't blow it up.
If you're more of a football fan listening to this podcast, just know they were supposed to be. And to be honest, you should be thankful for the Colorado Avalanche, because we essentially sent the Calgary Flames down into this tornado of just shit.
Fine by me.
When we beat them,
I remember that series
when they were the best team, and I kind of said, actually, I think it was on your podcast that time, and I was like, I think we have a good chance. Like they're pretty good. The guys play hard, and it was just what it was. And but
you beat them in 5, right?
Yeah. We just,
and I think Mike Smith stole game 1, and he was
the Mike Smith.
He was unbelievable, and that was it. Like he had 50 or 60 shots, and he
it was
stole
something
that game
stupid like that. And I remember going to on Instagram and stuff, and kind of having some arguments with people, and I was just like, they're like, oh, we dominated the Colorado Avalanche. I'm like, did you watch the same game that I watched? Because you better hope that Mike Smith has another 3 of those in his pocket to win you this whole thing, because if this game goes like the other games go like this game, you guys are in trouble. And oh no, you're just a salty Avalanche fan. I'm like, A, yes, I am salty. That is 100% for the fact right now. B, I'm also right in this fact that Mike Smith stole that game for you guys and played lights out, and he played really good for the next 2 games. Colorado still won, but then it just ended up being. But I don't know what you do in Calgary. Like Johnny Hockey's your main guy.
I think first of all you got to move out Johnny Hockey. And then I think the only player that's not tradable, Kachuk, and maybe Valimaki on the back end, just because he's young. But I mean, they're stuck with Gio for 2 more years, and he can't keep up with anyone.
No.
Michael Backlund isn't what he is. Who's that guy with the Sam Bennett, who a lot of Flames fans early on couldn't believe that we took Leon Draisaitl before Sam Bennett. I feel that that's worked out for us so far.
So.
I think they got to blow it up. But when you talk about Smith playing lights out for Calgary in the playoffs, that's the worry. Hopefully he doesn't revert back to old school Mike Smith by the time we get to the playoffs. But it's fun to watch them fall apart. But I think if you're looking at the NHL on a whole, scariest thing is Vancouver. I don't think they should play another game.
Yeah.
I think they need to worry about getting safe, getting healthy, keeping their families safe and healthy.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they're 8 points out of a playoff spot. Probably not going to get there.
No.
Just shut her down and go by points percentage for the playoffs.
And that's
if I'm being honest.
20 to 20 some cases now or whatever it is. It's bad luck. The one good thing is they supposedly can't get it again. if they want, and essentially the whole team has it to this point, like I guess that's one, the silver lining to it, I guess. But
I guess.
But you gotta worry about how the guys react to it once they come back, right? Like, are they gonna be like, some people get it and they're like, I'm fine, right? If you're like the president of the United States or whoever, right? You're just like, that was the common cold apparently. But then you have other guys that are like, oh no, man, like I'm a year out of this, and big athletes and stuff, and they're like, I'm not the same, and you can tell, right? Like, I know. Trevor's obviously, not to get in football, but they kind of said even for Cam Newton, he had it, and he wasn't really the same when he came back too. Right?
No, and that I was gonna say that I couldn't remember who it was that had it, but Cam Newton,
big name guy here, and like I said, just couldn't really quite recover from it after he had it, and like I said, that's just everybody, right? So how does it feel to sit back and watch the Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl show every night?
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. Like it's
like every night's just like
a
highlight reel, like a season highlight reel for most teams. You're just like, I get to watch that every day. It's pretty good. Yeah,
it's one of those I guess bittersweet things, because you get to see Connor every night and do it, but you also look at the team around Connor and you're like, what it could be, and how we've had more playoff wins than the Leafs have had since Connor's been here. But we've also had a lot of disappointments where, every year it's like, everyone in Toronto wants him to ask for a trade. And Oilers fans are like, man, if we don't get this figured out, we don't even blame him, to be honest. Like, this is getting ridiculous. He's got 69 points in 40 games. I mean, he might get 100 in this 56 game season. Like, that's stupid.
It's so stupid. Like, it's just watching him like every like all the highlights I watch of him, and I'm like, this is just too easy for the guy. And like, yes, you're playing against Ottawa, that makes things a little bit easier. Even Vancouver, they're kind of like a revolving door when it comes to some of their stuff too, right? I said, like, I had this conversation with Trevor last week. I said, do I think as a whole the defensive and goaltending game is the best in the Northern Conference? Probably not, right? There's some good players, don't get me wrong. Like Carey Price is there, Jacob Markstrom, I even kind of think I said, like, I think the worst goaltending situation in the North is the Oilers before the season. When you just look at everybody, I'm like Ottawa, like Matt Murray, I'm sure if Edmonton and Ottawa, if Ottawa went to Edmonton, was like, we'll give you Matt Murray for Mike Smith, they might say yes, right? You got a
at the start of the season, 100%. Oh yeah, right? I wanted Matt Murray. At the start, I was like, how do we let Matt Murray go? Like, how do we not sign Matt Murray? How do we not sign Jacob Markstrom? How do we not sign Braden Holtby?
All these guys.
Well, those three goaltenders aren't in the playoffs, and 41-year-old, I'm gonna make save standing on my head, Mike Smith, when I don't need to. Simple shot he could catch in his chest. He flips on his head and stands on his, like, it's just it's crazy. Connor's got more assists almost than Matthews and Marner have points. I mean, it's just a treat to watch.
It's going almost back to like the old days of like and people calm down. I'm just saying the name. I'm not saying that he is him, but it goes back to the days of like, Wayne Gretzky, where it was like, oh, that guy just, has more assists or has, is doubling up people in points or whatever. And it's like, that's one of those things you're just like, how do you compete against that? Like, and like, yes, a lot of them are like, it's, you watch the stat line at the end of the night and it's, Connor's got a goal and 2 assists and Leon's got 2 goals and an assist. It's like, okay, well, they're obviously playing on each other's line. They're obviously, probably doing this together. And it's because the Oilers don't have a whole lot, right? So it's, you're trying to, the depth isn't there, but it's the same as the Leafs. When you're paying 2 guys like Edmonton $23 million, it's hard to, and then obviously your ex-GM's a dumbass,
an idiot,
and spends money on all the wrong players and makes all the wrong trades. It's hard, right? You got to try to fit in a Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who on a lot of teams, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins would be a very good player, and he still is a good player, especially in his own end, right? But it's hard to pay all these guys, and at the end of the day, you have $30 million into Hopkins, Connor and Leon. It's like, okay, well, the cap's only so high. You got to try to fit all these other pieces in there and make a good team, and that's the hard part about it, right? It's It's
the Chicago model mixed in with a little bit of Pittsburgh model.
Yeah.
And Connor and Leon both took less money to get guys, but it's not just who you pay your stars. You have to draft well. And Edmonton, for the past, I don't know how long, haven't had a player outside of the second round make the team. Like they just don't. And if you don't have depth, then you're overpaying and reaching at free agency. And I mean, Hopkins, he's at $6 million. That's a bargain. I mean, he signed that way before he was kind of technically worth it, I guess.
Yeah.
And it's coming up now, and I don't know how they get him re-signed. But I mean, Kayla Yamamoto, and the biggest surprise is Jesse Puljujarvi.
Yeah.
I wrote that guy off as,
big
another Yakupov.
Yeah, exactly. Big slow guy that doesn't know, like, has all the skill in the world, but
just wants to play offense.
But but also like doesn't see, like, he's like, I get puck, I score a goal. Yeah. But there's not so much of like, okay, so I'm going to go around this guy and I can see the angle to pass to this guy or shoot in this angle to set. It was like, I always found with him, it was just all the talent in the world, but maybe not the best hockey sense. And that was also a weird draft pick for your guys, because I think it was Chiarelli that was the GM when you guys picked him, and he couldn't even like pronounce his name right when he got up to the podium to announce that they're drafting him. I was from wherever, Sweden.
Jesse Puljujarvi.
Yeah, Jesse Puljujarvi. Yeah. I'm like, everybody knows what his name is, by the way. Everybody has watched this guy play.
No, and he didn't go down to Bakersfield, and that was the thing. Like he wasn't another Nail Yakupov.
No.
But he just wanted to score, and I think he was best friends with Line. They were great in that World Juniors together. Mm-hmm. Everybody expected them to be the same player in Edmonton, and he didn't quite have the defensive game. He wouldn't go down to Bakersfield. He would pout. He didn't want to go down, allegedly.
Yeah.
And he went to Finland, and I was like, what? If you don't want to earn it, I'm done with you. Trade his potential now.
Yep.
In case he comes back and he's a bust. Get a defenseman, get a goaltender, get something for him. I'm kind of glad that Ken Holland held steady on him, because he's playing up with Connor, and that's what he was drafted to be.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got 15 points in 40 games, so not great, but he's using his big butt to shield the puck and get it to Connor, and Connor's doing Connor things. So it's been fun. It'll be an interesting trade deadline, and then we'll see when the playoffs come, because that's how, let's be honest, Canadian teams are judged.
Yeah.
The regular season doesn't matter. Let's see what you do in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's who cares what you did, right? Like, we're going back to the Canadians in the 90s, the last time that somebody from Canada won. Was it Canadians?
1993.
Yeah, Canadians. But like that's the last time they've anybody won anything, right? So it's like, okay, waiting here, and obviously people have got close, right? You got the Ottawa Senators have made it. You had Vancouver make it, obviously. Edmonton made it. Calgary made it. Like,
there's only one team really that hasn't, and I think we both know which team it is.
Yeah.
And, if for Trevor, I mean, he'll say the same thing. Like, it doesn't matter if Toronto went 56-0.
No,
they have to get out of the first round for that season to be a success.
Well, luckily they don't have to play Boston, so they're fine.
That's true, but they might have to play Montreal. And I just love that we're going to have a Canadian team in the Final Four.
Yeah,
and B. I don't know about you. We see it kind of in the queue. We're playing the same teams over. Do you like seeing the same teams in this division over and over and over again in the NHL? And even in your division with Colorado, do you like seeing this?
It's a little redundant. It's just you just watch the same stuff over and over, and like we're even like in Moncton, we're kind of right now we're like it's even worse than what we have in the NHL, because we got two teams. We got St. John and we got Bathurst that we can play, and that is it. So it's like for us, we're just like, okay, we've seen St. John. By the way, Moncton is not winning the Memorial Cup this year. By the way, people, that was last year. You've all heard us talk about it.
100%.
This year, and let me give the boys credit. They have done a very good job at being competitive in most of the games. Right. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of even the same thing with Ottawa. I didn't know if Ottawa was gonna make it. But the big thing with Ottawa, I said, you know what? I like the coach. They're going to be significantly out-muscled and outpowered in all aspects of this. They're a rebuilding team, right? They just got the second overall pick for a freaking reason. Like, it's because they're not good.
but they weren't going to be an easy out with that roster.
Exactly, right? And I'm like, just because of the way the coach does. So it's funny because Ottawa is kind of very much like Moncton is right now, and the same thing is, look, they have no reason competing in some of these games, and some games they don't. Some games you can just tell, like, hey, guess what? Edmonton's going to score 8 goals on you. You're going to let it, you're going to put up 3. That's just the way it's going to be. And that's what we've seen for Moncton too. But it's nice to see hockey. It's kind of cool to see hockey with fans in some places. Like I said, we get to see it in Moncton here. Nowhere else in Canada gets to see that for like an NHL city. In the States, obviously, they don't care. They're like, let everybody in. We don't give a shit, depending on where you are. But a lot of the places even have like partial. I think like Colorado, last week they just started opening up to, I think it's like 10% of fans or 20% of fans, whatever it is. It's a smaller number, but it's kind of cool because you kind of still get the pumped in fake noise is good, but just to hear the actual cheering and people,
actual crowd noise,
excited about a goal and stuff, like it's a little better than people sitting on their couch at home and getting Zoom called in like us here, with the delay and stuff, and it's a weird reaction when you're home, right? Because you're like, I'm on TV, but like, and you're excited, but you're being recorded, so you might not go like as crazy as you would. But
have you ever done that?
No. Okay. No, I thought
I nerd alert. I watch wrestling every now and then, and I've always seen in the Thunderdome, they got the cameras where they're being recorded. And I'm like, I think that'd be kind of cool to watch it from that vantage point, see it from your computer, like you're actually there, not watching it on TV. But I haven't done it. I just wondered if you did it in any other sports.
I haven't. I said I've seen a lot of people do it and stuff, even for like the draft stuff. But like last year for the NFL draft, which was just funny by the end of it, we'll get into that later on, but Roger Goodell just sitting and lounging, eating Skittles on his fucking, his recliner, just like with the 28th pick in the NFL draft, having
his rums or whatever.
But like I said, it's a different thing. Like I said, that's from Colorado's standpoint. They're actually playing a lot of guys in like the Pacific, so it's even teams that you're not typically playing a whole lot. Like we don't have Dallas. We don't have Nashville. We don't have like a lot of these teams that we typically be playing a lot. We're playing against we have Minnesota, so that's always been a good rivalry for Colorado. But we're playing Vegas, which is the one good thing about that is like Vegas is gonna be there, and like that's a scary thing. It's like, hey, guess what? Vegas or Colorado, one of those guys isn't making it to the end, and in most other years they probably would be facing off in the
conference final.
So I said it's gonna be a good test. There's a lot of other like rebuilding teams, I guess, in the same breath for them. You got like the Anaheims and the LAs, and they've all played good. We played Arizona a couple of times, so it's kind of different to see. But you kind of wonder like, how would we match up against an Edmonton? How would you match up against the Islanders or Tampa Bay or whoever, right? Just to it's just nice to see the best playing against the best, right? And that's kind of one of those things you lose in these little small divisions where you're just playing each other over and over again, is you just wonder like, how are these guys going to match up? And like I said, it's because some of these teams, like I said, does Toronto play this well if they're playing against tougher competition? Yeah, maybe, right? Or are they just that much better than the Calgarys? Is Calgary that bad because they're playing in this division where you have a couple teams that are better than them, right? So
when you only get to beat up on Ottawa instead of getting to beat up on San Jose, LA,
but then instead you're starting to get beat up on by Ottawa.
Exactly. For them. It's funny, your division in the West literally mirrors the North Division. Like your team in Colorado is not heads and tails, but they were going to be the top team in that division. Toronto's there, and then you've got Vegas, Edmonton, same thing, Winnipeg and Minnesota. I mean, some people saw Winnipeg being good. Arizona kind of feels like Montreal. They're putting it together. And then Calgary, Vancouver, Ottawa are like the San Jose, LA, and Anaheim. Like it's weird. I'm just looking at it. It's weird how your division kind of matches up against.
It's funny because the Blues are kind of like the Flames, like the team that should be really good. That you're why aren't you guys better than what you are? Like the Blues have just been good and like they can't score. It's like, what do you mean? You brought in Mike Hoffman. The guy's making like $1 million a year, and you're bringing him in and the guy puts up 30 goals a year every season. All of a sudden you can't score. Like that's kind of odd. But that's just the way it works sometimes. Like, I guess they kind of had the same thing with James Neal at one point, right? So, it is what it is, but we're the same thing. Like you said, just Colorado top. Minnesota, I expected them to be complete and utter dog shit, to be honest. I just didn't think they'd be that good. And I think they're okay. I say that after they beat us 8-3 the other night. Just the game kind of just got away from them. But I find there's a lot of chippiness in the games. I don't know if you find the same in the North, but it's like guys are just hating each other. Like, you're just
they did this for playoff rivalries, and I think they got it about a month too early. I know that Minnesota. I mean, I saw in Edmonton, if Cam Talbot, he can carry a hockey club. And I think that's what he's doing for a young Minnesota team, and they've got that Kirill Kaprizov for a rookie of the year that's like 29 or 45 or whatever age he is. I haven't seen, like, I'll be honest, I don't watch games. I told you this before we started. I don't watch games other than the North Division. So it's tough for me to kind of gauge on other divisions, because I other than that outdoor game, I haven't seen Colorado play all year, and I only watched that one for the NHL's sickest jerseys. So
they are the best jerseys in the league.
How do you like watching games against San Jose, LA, and Anaheim, living on the East Coast? Enjoying that, because I hate that part.
So that's like I tell everybody, like, I'm the stupidest sports fan in the world. We live in fucking Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada, so we're Atlantic time. So if anyone doesn't know, Atlantic time is actually an hour ahead of the East time. So what Toronto's time, if it's 7:00, we're 8:00. So we're even later in the day. And my two favorite sports teams for the major sports I watch is Colorado Avalanche, which are 4 hours ahead of me, or behind me, and then we have the LA Chargers, or San Diego Chargers, was also 4 hours ahead of me. So I'm like, I just can't catch a break. Like, I remember it was one night, it was, I think, the Raiders versus the Chargers, and they started at like 11:00 my time, and I was like, like, this is what I gotta deal with. I'm like, it was like a Friday or Thursday night or Sunday night, or I can't remember what it was, but I was like, well, I'm staying up to watch it. Like, it's the Raiders. I hate the Raiders. And this is like 2 years ago, and I was like, this is the worst idea I've ever had in my life. I paid for it the next day, but
I've got the Oilers and the Buccaneers, and living in Alberta, it's great. The Oilers are perfect mountain team. Up until this year, it sucked watching those games in the Pacific Division, in the Pacific time zone. This year, I mean, I'm getting lucky. I've got Toronto, Winnipeg, and Montreal, so they're at 7, 6, 8 o'clock our time. It's not that bad, but I wondered how you're dealing with playing, how many times you've seen Colorado versus San Jose, LA, and Anaheim going, they're probably going to win. I don't need to watch
I've watched almost all of them still. And
have you?
Yeah. It's
good on you.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm a guy that likes I'm up late anyways most of the time, but like, that's even like, it's pushing it for me sometimes, but it's good. Like I said, I get to see the good and the bad, and I kind of had the conversation on last episode with Trevor too, and I kind of said, a lot of people talk about a lot of things, and like the most impressive part about the Avalanche this year has been Philip Grubauer. And I kind of said it last year, like, if the guy didn't get hurt in the playoffs, and that was, I think, Colorado's issue as a whole last year, was they were very talented. They just ran into every injury in the book. Like, game 7 they played, they didn't have Landeskog, they didn't have Eric Johnson, they didn't have Grubauer, they didn't have Francouz. They were on their third string goalie. They were missing like I think it was like 5 of their top 9 players or something like that. Like, it was just, they were down to shambles, and it was like, at that point it's a little hard to like compete against somebody else. Not what you want to see type of thing. But it's, like I said, I'm kind of used to it, and it's entertaining. Like, Colorado's really good, and Grubauer's been very good. And I kind of told Trevor last time, I laid out the stats. I hadn't even looked at them beforehand, and I said, I think Grubauer could be in the Vezina conversation. He goes, are you crazy? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, well, let me look at the stats real quick. And I looked at the stats, and every stat was as good, if not better, than Vasilevskiy. And I was like, so there you go. I'm like, I didn't even know those stats, and he just, comes out. And I'm like, he's just played really solid for them. Like, do they give up a ton of shots? No. But they've also dealt with a lot of injuries, and as a team, they played really well. And when he has to make the saves, he does, that's all you can ask for a goalie, right? Martin Brodeur made a career out of it. The guy literally stopped, 14, 15, 16, 18 shots every night in a zone, in the trap system, and made a career out of it and was very good, because guess what? When he did get those 5 good shots on him a game, he stopped them. And that's from a guy that hates Martin Brodeur because I'm a Patrick Waugh fan, but it is what it is. Love Patrick Waugh. So,
you can't hate Martin Brodeur, though. You got to respect what he is.
I respect what he is, but look, I'm just going to tell you, Patrick Waugh is here, and then Martin Brodeur is a little bit lower than that. Somewhere around here. For me, it's Patrick Waugh, then Dominic Hasek, then probably Martin Brodeur.
Really? Yeah. Okay, you can bring me on the next episode. We'll debate that kind of stuff. I just looked at the stats for goalies. I didn't even realize Grubauer was.
No, and like I said, a lot of people
he's right up there with Vasilevsky and Leonard and Fleury and.
Oh yeah, he's like lights out. Like it's I'm watching him play. Like he's just so calm down there. Like a lot of goals that are going in, other than the other night when he lets in. There was 8 goals against them, but he's also had to play a lot, because when Colorado's had their backup goalies, they've been absolutely terrible. And they've tried to change guys. Their main backup, he's been hurt all year. He hasn't played. So they're trying to piece something together for the backup spot, hoping for something. But before we get off from the NHL talk and go to the football talk, I just want to talk real quick. I know you said you haven't seen a whole lot, but what are your opinions on one Mr. Alexis Lafreniere and what you saw out of him? Because I obviously I watched him, the same amount of time pretty much that you did. But what is like to see the guy that we saw every day and how dominant he was? And yes, it's junior hockey. I understand. Right. But it wasn't like it was a 1-year thing. And it wasn't like he just had a one-trick pony, like it wasn't like he just stood in the left, the face-off circle and just cranked one-timers. It seemed like he really played like a full rounded game and everything else. And to see that he comes up with, so far in 40 games, he has 13 points, 7 goals, 6 assists. Like, I don't know. Like when I watched him in junior, like even from when he first came in, obviously the guy scores 80 points in 60 games as a rookie, puts up 105 in 61 games, and then 112 in his last year in 52 games. Like everybody was like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. He's the first overall pick. And then just to see him struggle. Now he's on third line playing time for New York, but was there anything that jumped out to you when you watched him that said like maybe he won't transition as well to the NHL? Or
no, I thought he would. I'm just trying to find the Rangers depth checker. If I'm being honest, I think he was special in junior. We saw him. I want to say, aside from the playoffs, I think we saw Rimouski 11 times, and I think Moncton was like 7-4 against him. Yeah, we were able to kind of shut him down, whether it was sites in the 2018 playoffs or whether it was a committee kind of thing. Yeah, or it was the game last year. I mean, he was great for what he was. I think in junior he got a bum rap of being a floater. Yeah. Because, he didn't have to be great. No. He could pick his spots and he could be really good when he needed to be. And, obviously, like you said, 105 points in 61, 112, led Team Canada. And I think that was the biggest thing this year. Is I was talking to a friend, Mike Sampson, and I said, I'm surprised the Rangers don't let Lafreniere go, because at that time we didn't know what we were going to have for hockey. Yeah. And he said, but why? If he goes there and he dominates, well, he should. He's the number 1 pick. Yeah. If he goes there and he doesn't dominate, what's wrong with him? Exactly. I honestly think the worst thing for Lafreniere was he was drafted to the Rangers. Yep. So all the expectations were taken off him. I mean, he doesn't have to carry it, so he can kind of learn. And I think that's what he's doing, is he's slowly learning. I mean, he's playing behind Kreider. He's playing behind Panarin. Ryan
Strome there. You got Mika Zibanejad. You got, you're
at center. I mean,
you're the third line. You're the third line player, and you're not going to get power play time.
Yeah. So I mean, what would he do in Ottawa? you know, he'd probably be a top line.
Yeah.
With
or top
Derek,
two.
Yeah, or with Derek Stepan, like learning. Yeah. I mean, we'd obviously be pumped to see him play in Canada.
Yeah.
But the draft lottery was kind of a joke to begin with.
Yeah.
The Rangers shouldn't have even been there.
Nope.
But I guess I shouldn't say it's a worse spot for him. I think he's able to take a year to settle in, and it's a very different year. We don't know how he was training and how slow, but you know, Moncton tanked for Lafreniere in the 2016-2017 season.
We did.
My co-host, I wasn't there for that. I moved here after. My co-host Jeremy Boucher says that all the time. I mean, we were tanking for Lafreniere, and in the 2 years, he put up a lot of points. But I think Jacob Pelche was a better player and is a better leader. And you know, when Pelche gets eventually to Calgary, they're going to be connected a lot of years. I mean, because they're all friends, all those four with Poulin and Legare. So, you know, I don't consider him a bust.
No,
I just consider him a work in progress. And I know, I mean, you're going from Rimouski to New York, the biggest market in the world. All that New York sees are his stats. So they're literally going, you're supposed to be Sidney Crosby. Why aren't you Sidney Crosby?
Which is hard.
That's
it was a thing that Nathan McKinnon dealt with when he came into the NHL. You know, he kind of said like on the Spit and Chicklets podcast, he kind of, and I've mentioned them multiple times and these interviews that they had with Sid and Nate. But you know, Nate was like, "Look, I was labeled the next Sidney Crosby my entire life." You know, he's like
from Cole Harbour. Yeah,
he's like, I'm from the same town as him. I went first overall in the NHL draft. I went first overall in the Q draft. You know, I put up, you know, did very well type of thing. Like I've done everything that Sid did, and I'm labeled. I got to be Sidney Crosby, and like the amount of stress and pressure and stuff like that. You just imagine, right? Like you have to be Sidney Crosby. It's like, oh, so you just have to be one of the top 10 players in NHL history. It's like,
and they didn't even play on the same team. Like everything Crosby did in Rimouski. Yeah, Alexis Lafreniere was like, they're going to put number 11 up in that building. You just know it.
Yeah,
and I mean the only different and I on one of our episodes early in the year before the playoffs, I labeled for the second year. I was like, is his Q career a bust if Rimouski doesn't go? It was when they went to the third round there. Mm-hmm. If he doesn't get past the first round, like, I mean, he's putting up all these points, but he's not going anywhere. So. I think he's taken the year to kind of learn the NHL game. And I think, like a lot of these young guys, a full season is going to help them. He's taking the first year. I think eventually he's going to get there, but he was never going to be Sidney Crosby. His game isn't Sidney Crosby.
No.
I mean,
he's also a winger. He's not even a center, right? Like, when you're playing a different position, you know, you kind of got to rely on your line mates to make you better. And yes, you know, it looks crazy because New York's out there just putting up crazy, you know, points against the Phillies and stuff like that now. But for the first 3 quarters of the season, New York couldn't score. Zibanejad had like 10 points in like 30-some games. You know, this is the guy that scored 5 points right before COVID hit last year, right? Like, there were so many other issues on that team. Panarin had the whole thing with the Russian government, whatever the hell that was, right? Like, there was so many things that led up to it, and it was just like, man, like, and like I talked to a lot of people and I like sports cards, and actually I have like a few Alexis Lafreniere cards, and I'm telling you right now, they were a lot more expensive like a couple months ago. And then he came out and it was like, okay, well, he's having struggles. Okay, well, he's having struggles. And then it's like, okay, so his card is now like half of what it was before the season started. And it's like, oh, so like even a lot of the other guys are like walking away from him. But it's not that easy, right? Like, people talk about Nathan McKinnon. Well, you know, Sidney Crosby put up 110 points or whatever it was his rookie year, 108 points, whatever it was. And, you know, Nathan McKinnon put up 60 something. Like, he wasn't the greatest player in the world either, right? You know, you go down through the list, there's a lot of guys. Not everybody's going to be Connor. And it's because we're spoiled, right? We've gotten to watch Sidney Crosby, Alex Ovechkin, Connor McDavid, you know, Austin Matthews. We've got to see all these guys come in first overall and just be dynamic players right from the get-go. and it's hard. It's like when you're not the guy, you're not getting the ice time. I looked it up. Right now he's getting 13. His average ice time is 13 minutes, 13 and a half minutes a game.
So that's minimum 10 minutes less than he was playing
in junior. Yeah, he was playing 20 minutes. And that was the same thing. When you look at a lot of these guys, Stutzel's playing a couple more minutes, like almost 3 minutes more a game than him. Like all these other things. He's gotten 0 power play points, 0 Lafreniere. So it's like, obviously he's probably not getting the ice time there. And maybe they're just trying to develop his game as a whole. It's just like I said, I wasn't sure. I know he never had the speed of a Connor. He never had I don't know. Like I said, he was always good, but he just never had that holy crap. Like it was like you watched him and you're like, yeah, he's better than everybody else. But it was never like he had the speed or something like that to really.
He had the switch. Like he didn't have to be great, but when he needed to be great, he could flip it on and be great. And I think the thing that hurt him was the Rangers. If he was in LA, although LA needed a center and he's not a center, but I mean, if Detroit wins the lottery like they should have, if there was no lottery system, I mean, him playing with Larkin and Svechnikov, okay, or him and Zadina, that's a line you put together with Larkin. I bet he's got 30 points by now. So, it's just, I mean, I'm sure it's weighing on him. He's going to be the next one, and he was supposed to win Rookie of the Year, and I think everyone expected him to be putting up the Kaprizov numbers, and he's learning. That's the thing. It's a learning process for him.
It is, and I think I even said I see him coming in, even in a shortened season. I kind of seen him scoring. I said in a full season he probably puts up 60 points, and in a shortened season he probably puts up 45 or 50. Obviously, I'm off by a little bit. Just a couple at this point. He's about to turn it on, though. I can feel it. When the month of April,
he's gonna flip that switch.
Yeah, the month of April is really gonna flip that switch. They gotta start playing him 20 minutes a night. But it was just one of those things, right? It just let him grow. Let's not put him in too much of a thing. And I think in the shortened season, I think maybe even in a regular season where they're playing a lot more teams, they'd be more, maybe they'd let him play more, but right now it's one of those things where it's so every game matters, and you can't afford to go on a couple game losing streak because all of a sudden you're like, oh, so I went on a couple game losing streak, and all of a sudden I'm down to right now they're fighting for a playoff spot. They're not even in the playoffs. Boston's ahead of them. They're at 43 points and the Bruins have 48. And they're like, we're battling tooth and nail to get every point we can to hopefully make the playoffs. We're not going to experiment this with the young guy just to make him look good and just to bump him up. We're not going to go and put him out there on the power play, on other stuff. Like I said, if they get kicked out of the playoffs, if they kind of know, okay, there's no way for to catch us, maybe they do kind of put him in those roles and kind of experiment with them. But I think right now they'd be doing the team a disservice if they start benching, Zibanejad, Kreider, Strome, just go through the list of guys that they have to, Kapo's out there. They have Kratzov, who, he's now over there. So they have a list of these guys that are supposed to be really good. They just gotta, which is a good problem to have that many good young guys. Prospects, but. And
they're not, I mean, look at the team they're playing. Like, first of all, they're not going to sit those rookies just because they're out of the playoffs. They're professional hockey players. They're playing. But look at the division. They're playing Washington, Islanders, Pittsburgh, Boston, Philly. Like, if it was a regular year, I mean, he'd get to beat up on, he's playing the Sabres now, who are a tire fires.
Yeah.
The Senators, you'd get to play the Red Wings.
You'd play the Blue Jackets. You'd play the Blackhawks, the Predators. You play all these other teams that are
you get to play all the shit. Yeah, exactly. He's playing really good teams, so he doesn't have that. We're beating up on Ottawa, so we're going to put Lafreniere on the first line and see what he can do.
Yeah, you essentially got to hope that you put up crazy points against a Buffalo, but the rest of the teams, how good are they usually defensively, and how good are those teams? They're all very good teams, right?
They're perennial Stanley Cup teams, year after year after year. I guess other than the Islanders, who are kind of taking the step forward this year.
But then that team that's not that contender that we see a lot, we call them. Well, no, but they also just play one of the the hardest defensive games to get in and to generate scoring opportunities again. So it's like, oh, there we go. So you just
100%. Yeah, if you got Rangers fans that listen, he's a work in progress, and give him two or 3 years, and he's probably putting up some points. And I don't know if he'll ever be a Hart guy, like a trophy guy. I don't know if he'll win with Connor McDavid. He's going to need an injury season for somebody else to win the points race, other than Draisaitl. But I don't think Lafreniere will ever get to that level.
No.
But I think he'll have a long, successful 10, 15-year career where he puts up a lot of points and who knows, maybe makes a few long playoff runs.
To watch him go score 70, 80 points a year every year is probably going to happen. Like, it's just because that's who he is. That's how good the guy is, right?
He'll find the net. He's a goal scorer.
Yeah, he's going to be a Mark Scheifele. He's going to be a Kyle Connor. He's going to be in that list of guys where it's like, yeah, those guys are the elite guys. They're going to make $8 million a year every year type of thing. That's the kind of guys you can probably look at him towards, rather than, okay, here is the Connor McDavid, the Nathan McKinnons, the Draisaitl's, the Matthews, the Crosbys, the Ovechkins, whatever. Like, those are the kind of guys that are always going to be at the top of that list for the most part, I think, for the next. Even Sidney Crosby, I was looking earlier, I was just laughing because I was like, NHL stats. Sidney Crosby's like top 10 in scoring right now. It's like, it's just funny because it's like, how old are you? Like, you've been doing, like, you're 34 years old. Like, every other guy, I guess Patrick Kane's up there too, but Patrick Kane has 51 points in 41 games, and Sidney Crosby in 40 games has 47 points in 40 games. Like, the guy just doesn't stop scoring. Like, Nathan McKinnon's right behind him, 47 and 35 games. It's just ridiculous to see the way that, some of these guys are able to keep it going, and people are like, oh, Sidney Crosby, he's written off. It's like, have you watched hockey? Because that guy's really good, by the way. Anyways, we're going to move on we're going to get off the ice. We're going to get on to the gridiron. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the Super Bowl. We got to congratulate Adam and his Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Boo.
Hey, man, I've suffered for 18. I had a daughter. So they won in 2002. They won a Super Bowl. I had a daughter, and she's now driving. In the time it took my team to get to Super Bowl, 18 long years.
Yes, Warren Sapp Lund, your poor daughter.
Yeah, that's exactly what her name is. No, she was born in 2004, so it's like, I mean, oh man, picking the Bucs and the Oilers. There's been some lean years in the 2000s. So it's everything came together. I said this before we got going. I did not expect Tampa Bay to win. I did not expect them to do anything that they did this year. I said to a lot of my friends, especially when they started signing Antonio and Fournette, and obviously Brady started it, and Gronk, super team, blah, blah, blah. I said, I just expect us to go 10-6, second in the division, because New Orleans has been running this thing forever.
Yeah.
Make the playoffs, win the wild card game, call it a season.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else, that was year one. Year two with a full off season was going to be our year. I don't think there's been a tougher road to get to a Super Bowl than Breeze, Rodgers, Mahomes.
Yeah. And
the fact that we've brought back every starter, aside from Antonio Brown, he wasn't really a starter.
Yeah.
Every starter in that Super Bowl, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse. We brought them all back. We know what they can do, but now the expectations are there. And, like we said, it's Tom Brady. Yeah. And everybody hates Tom Brady. Tom Brady gets the calls. I will not lie to you. When you're on this side of it,
it's pretty good.
The calls are okay. I can justify the calls. Yeah. But
you're like, I don't know what you mean. Like,
I don't know what you mean.
What do you mean uncatchable ball?
Uncatchable that was catchable. 100%. There's no way Gronk doesn't catch that. He's like 8'4". He just reaches out.
Even though you got to be Shaq to catch it, that's fine. That's
yeah, exactly. But this year's going to be interesting because the expectations are there. Like, we should win the division.
Yeah.
There's no Breeze. Green Bay, I don't think they've gotten really any better. I mean, obviously the draft is coming up. Free agency, they haven't gotten any better.
If anything,
Seattle, they may get worse. Seattle, I don't think they've gotten better. No, you can make an argument the Rams have gotten better with Stafford. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm just glad we're gonna have football again. I'm glad we're talking football. The draft is one of the, aside from fantasy football, the actual draft is the second best draft of the year.
Oh, it's so
right?
good.
So
good.
Yeah. So it's exciting, and it took a long time, and I suffered. So I will take all the love and all the support and all the hate that people will give me. And yeah, it's been a good couple months since February for
exactly.
Me, for sure.
A good issue to have. When it comes to it's just like, I guess another thing, just as a Bucs fan. So obviously you had Jameis Winston for all those years. You get to watch the issues, the good and the bad with Jameis Winston, right? Obviously throws for like 5,000 yards 2 years ago, 30 some touchdowns,
and 30 interceptions.
30 interceptions. Yeah, it goes all the way, right? Do you think, just because, and I really do truly think this, if it's Jameis Winston playing for the Saints in that game over Drew Brees, do you think that the Saints win?
In the divisional playoffs?
Yeah, because I just think Drew Brees' arm was so terrible and so dog shit in that game. He couldn't complete a basic pass. Like that to me, I just found that, and he said the guy's old. He had a hard time, but I'm like, you just take out so much potential of what you can put out there against them. Like that, like you guys never worried about him throwing over 20 yards. You were never worried about a deep ball.
No, especially with slant boy Mike Thomas. That's all he runs. Like that's all it is. That's all he can run because Drew Brees. I still think we win that game. The thing about Jameis, how am I trying to put this here? Jameis in an offseason in New Orleans actually kind of scares me. I think that what sounds weird is I think New Orleans can actually maybe be a little bit better. Because he can unlock Sean Payton's playbook. And I hate Sean Payton. I hate that whole organization. I hate that whole city.
You're like, you had a hurricane, get over it.
You had a hurricane, you whine about everything, you can't whine about, you were Deflategate. You were Bountygate.
Yeah.
You don't get to whine about anything anymore. It's the same with the Patriots. You were Deflategate, you don't get to whine about anything anymore.
And Spygate. And every other gate.
It's Spygate and every other gate other than Bountygate. But I don't think they would have won that game because Tampa knows Jameis so well. And he had that one trick play that no one saw. The problem with Jameis is Jameis throws from deep to small. And he would just try to find Mike Evans. Worked out. Mike Evans is the first receiver in NFL history to have 1,000 yards in 7 straight seasons. Worked out great. He throws for 5,000. He's a fantasy god for fantasy football. I think it would have been a more competitive game. I still think Tampa Bay would have won because, that whole defense knows Jameis. But I think we're going to win the division, but I don't think New Orleans is going to be 4-12 bad. I think Jameis and Taysom, I think Jameis can do some things. He's apparently had LASIK, and that's a true story. Like, it's ridiculous. When you see your quarterback doing this,
you're like,
that's not a good thing.
Yeah, are you wondering if there's 2 guys down there covering that guy? Because you probably shouldn't be wondering that.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. And I like Jameis, and he almost got us to the playoffs once, and I'm kind of glad that we didn't go down the Jared Goff, Carson Wentz route. And, he had that great 5,000 yard, 30 touchdown. I think if he throws 20 interceptions, I think we might have re-signed him that 5th year. But which would have not led to Tampa Bay winning. Obviously, we don't bring in Tom Brady. I don't think we would have won that game, but I think Jameis would have made it a lot closer.
And obviously it was a close game anyways, right? Like it was close, right? Up until that Jared Cook fumble, it was like you guys were set to lose that game, right? Like that's just
it wasn't going well. It was
And I'm, as a Chargers fan who picked up Jared Cook, I'm not very excited about that because I don't like Jared Cook. I'm like, the guy's good, but like
he's healthy. He stays healthy. He plays 16 games.
That's good, I guess.
For your position, tight end wise, he's going to be Herbert's best friend, right? If you're looking for a fantasy
starter that's going to get you 5 to 12 points a game as a tight end, Jared Cook's the man for you.
And if you're looking for a late round quarterback, Herbert is the guy for you.
Yeah, good guy. But no, like I said, I just wanted to see what your kind of thoughts on it. Like I said, obviously there's not a whole lot of Tampa Bay fans around here. It's like there's not a whole lot of Charger fans, right?
There's like 3.
Yeah, we're
like,
in.
I don't even know who they are, but there's like 3.
Yeah, we're in a place where it's like you're a Patriots fan, you're a Steelers fan, you're a Green Bay fan.
Yeah,
you might have the odd, you have Cowboys, I guess, and like the Colts,
which is nice because in Alberta it's all Seattle.
Yeah.
And they've only been there since like 2015 or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's all Seattle. So it's kind of nice to see. Like, I've heard about Browns fans.
Yeah.
But I've never seen one or met one till I moved out here.
And then you're like, hey, Andy. What is
Andy is the Brown. I'm like, seriously, you're a Browns fan? Like, for real? Like, I'm like, you exist. You're real. Like,
my hand's not
you
going
hear
through
about,
you.
Yeah, you hear about them, but to actually see them is amazing. And
that's the thing when you don't have a close, Buffalo's the closest, maybe, the Patriots, and obviously a lot of people just, when the Patriots are the best team for
20 years,
in 2 decades, that's what there's going to be.
Yeah.
And I, the one thing I give Trevor, God love him, he was a Patriots fan before they got Brady. So he was actually 100%. He was a fan before that. So I gotta give him props for that.
That's what I said in Alberta. If you could tell me, if you're a Seattle fan, you could tell me that they were in the AFC West.
Yeah.
Then I'll respect you and I'll have a car. I want to ask you, the jersey you're wearing, Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
So he came in the draft with Eli Manning and Big Ben.
Yep.
And that was the top 3. He just retired.
He did.
Eli Manning's retired.
Shed a tear.
Big Ben
should retire.
You know what? He should retire. It's funny. It was between Brady and Tampa Bay won because they got Tom Brady.
Yeah.
If Tampa Bay had Phillip Rivers, nothing against them.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay doesn't win the Super Bowl. Anyways, is Phillip Rivers a Hall of Famer with the records and everything, but no Super Bowls?
See, and I think he is. It's just because I think when you're
I do too.
When you're top 10 in every single statistical category. Now I understand the playoffs, right? But it's the same thing. If you take Tom Brady and flip him and put him on the Chiefs this year, does Tom Brady win the Super Bowl for the Chiefs? No, right? It's a team game. You need that defense. You need that whole team, right? For me, as a Chargers fan, and I've been a Chargers fan since LT. So like that's when I first I saw LT play and I was like, holy crap, look at this guy go. This is the greatest running. Like I didn't know football, but all I knew was like that guy right there is electric and I love watching that guy play. And that's why I became a Chargers fan. It's because of LaDainian Tomlinson. But I've watched like the good and the bad, and I've watched Phillip Rivers throw, and he said it in press conferences, and the interview gets me every time, but he kind of at one point he came out and said, when he was playing with the Chargers, he's like, I don't care if we're down by 2 touchdowns and I throw an interception trying to win the game, trying to get us back into it with a minute and a half left. Like, I don't care because I want to win the game. Like I could dump it down, that was always his thing, right? Like he doesn't care about throwing an interception because he's like, at the end of the day, I want to win the game. I could do check downs and they can do their little razzle dazzle, flips back to each other. But does that win you the game? Probably not, right? And I watched him, the guy goes out and plays a playoff game on a torn ACL. Who the fuck does that? Phillip Rivers does. He goes into, a playoff game. Nate Kading misses 3 kicks. He had missed 2 kicks all season. He misses 3 in a playoff game. They lose against the Jets. They were about to beat the Patriots. And, we intercept Brady. It's great. Perfect. We won the game.
All you got to do is lay down.
All you got to do is lay down. Nope. Doesn't lay down. All of a sudden they get back. Patriots win the game. Like, it's stupid stuff like that.
And all the injuries lately. Like, you guys can't even stay.
No.
One of the most hyped teams, and you can't stay healthy. Like, your medical staff needs to be rebuilt.
We stabbed fucking Tyrod Taylor through the goddamn lung. Like, with a fucking golf tee.
Hey, hold on. That worked out for you. Hey, that worked out because he was not. Justin Herbert was not going to play. And I said to you many times, I don't know why he's going back to Tyrod Taylor or trying to go back to Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, it was just. And I think it was because he was like looking at what are we going to do. But no, like I said, Phillip Rivers to me, if you just take away everything around him, like I said, the man can't play defense. The man can't kick footballs.
Yeah.
The man can't block for himself, which was another issue they had for freaking ever. Like that's just what you run into at that time. But what he had and the terrible owners they had, they traded away. You guys got Vincent Jackson. That was our star receiver. Like
lost in free agency.
Yeah. Like we lost that guy. Why? Nobody knows. They don't pay LT. LT leaves, right?
Rest
like
in peace.
You're gonna get rid of, LT. Yeah, rest in peace to Vincent Jackson. That's fucked up, by the way. They just thought he was sleeping for 2 straight days. Just messed up.
Unbelievable. Anyways, I agree with you 100%. I think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer. I know that there's the people out there. I mean,
and it's the
I'm
argument
looking at
the time, right, and that's and don't get me wrong. I understand where the argument comes from, right?
Yeah.
And I understand that it has to be part of it, right? I understand that you have to, championships should matter a little bit, right? Even no matter how good the team is, that was my one problem with, I always say about Brady is like, the guy would play for $15 million a year. He's playing for $10 to $15 million less than what he probably should because his wife's a multi-billionaire from her modeling career. Like,
it factors in.
He can afford to do that, right? So you all of a sudden you get a couple more $5 million players, whatever. But you look at like the year that Eli goes, so Eli beats him. So Eli has 2 Super Bowls. If you just took Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers and you switched them teams in those situations, Phillip Rivers is going to win that game.
Yeah.
If does Eli Manning put any of the Chargers teams above? No, because Eli Manning. No,
and that's the one you can take because they were traded for each other. Yeah. And I think Phillip Rivers is a Hall of Famer, and my buddies and I have had this conversation many times. And I think the obvious determining factor is yards and blah 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 and championships. If you have, and I'm looking at it, more completions, more passing touchdowns, and more passing yards than Dan Marino, who's a Hall of Famer, who never won a championship, I think you deserve the recognition to be a Hall of Famer. Is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? No. Is Eli Manning a first ballot Hall of Famer? His last name is Manning.
Yeah.
Is Ben Roethlisberger a first ballot Hall of Famer? Probably because he's got 3 Super Bowls. So, 2. Sorry, 2. I think Rivers is. I don't know if he's a first ballot. I think he probably has to wait 2 or 3 years. It all depends what class he's coming in, but I 100% think he is. I just wonder what. Obviously,
and obviously, like I said, I'm extremely freaking biased when it comes to this stuff because he was my quarterback for 60 goddamn years, right? I'm gonna love that guy. And I said, if you just go off trash talking alone, that guy gets in the Hall of Fame for the trash talking alone. If you do that.
Or bolo ties.
The bolo ties, those are even better. But like when you're comparing them, like I said, my problem with the whole Super Bowl thing, and like I said, I understand it, but like you're gonna judge a guy's entire career. And so Big Ben won 2 Super Bowls in his first 4 seasons. Okay. Mm-hmm. He put up 200 yards, 2 TDs, under 2 TDs, and under 1 essentially 7 in 4 games with Pittsburgh in his second season. He put up 800 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. So he averaged 200 yards, under 2 touchdowns, and 1.75 touchdowns a game, and then 0.75 of an interception per game, essentially. And so you're like, okay.
Super Bowls?
And that was in the Super Bowl. That was in the first one he won. And then the second one, he wins 3 games. He puts up 692 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception in 3 games. So those stats and those Super Bowl runs, because he was on such a good freaking team, that puts him over and makes him that much better than an entire career of what Phillip Rivers was able to do, that never missed games, played every fucking game that you could have for the Chargers. He put up more yards, put up more touchdowns, put up, everything that you want, wins, I think everything else that you could want, than a Big Ben. And it's like, okay, so you're going to give Big Ben the recognition and give him the thing when he put up a grand total in his 2 Super Bowl runs. He put up 10 touchdowns and 4 interceptions and whatever it would be, like 1,500 or 1,300 yards in 7 games. And that's going to give you that's going to make you that much better. And that's going to put you over the edge. It's like,
I think if you're looking at edge, if you're putting the same 2 players up and you're like,
but I'm saying like,
it's year 3, I think, or it's year 2 or whatever, and it's Rivers and Roethlisberger, I think Roethlisberger gets in there more because he had the early Super Bowl success
100%.
and he had the playoff, and maybe Rivers waits a year.
And
but I definitely think Rivers gets in.
Like I said, it matters, right? It's,
yeah.
You know, and I can make the same if I want to argue why Patrick Waugh is better than Martin Brodeur. I could obviously go and say, well, Patrick Waugh has four Stanley Cups. Martin Brodeur only has 3. You know, I can go on that stuff. I understand, like I said, but to me, it's a team game. You know, Philip Rivers never had the defenses that those Steelers teams had. Definitely not.
And when they finally were, they never were healthy.
No, and that was it, right? Like the last year, you know, during that's just a problem with the Chargers. They're always, you know, the only one that could stay healthy through the last 16 years, 17 years has been Philip Rivers, right? So
and let's be honest, Philip Rivers had all the success in San Diego and everything was great. He either ran into Ben Roethlisberger and an unbelievable Steelers team, or Tom freaking Brady and the Patriots. So or Peyton Manning and the Colts. Yeah, exactly.
Or Mark Sanchez and the Jets. So
that's an outlier, but yeah, it's 100%. I just like he just because he retired, that's going to be the question 5 years down the road. Is he a first ballot or does he have to wait? I think he has to wait maybe 3 years. I think he's a third ballot Hall of Famer, but
and I understand like the guy.
Hall of Fame is a tough thing because is it a Hall of Fame? Like there's a lot of Hall of Fame players, or is it good players that had great careers for short amount of time?
And it's
like
hard,
Terrell Davis.
Because what are you gonna do? What are you gonna? Yeah, Terrell Davis had 4 seasons?
4 really great seasons and 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah,
it's just like, and he was the best at his position for 5 years.
Yeah,
but all right, sure.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't Barry Sanders. So is that 5-year run with 2 Super Bowls equal to Barry Sanders' 10-year run of being a number 1
running back,
number 2 running back in all of NFL history?
Yeah.
Is that what it equates to be the same thing? And I guess some voters are, and it's really dependent on who goes into that meeting and says Philip Rivers is a Hall of Famer because, and lays it out. And that's what it.
And I understand. Has he ever been? And that's one thing I'll say. Has he ever been the best quarterback in the league at any certain point? And I said it's probably not. Like even as a Chargers fan, I obviously am biased, but literally you had Peyton Manning, who probably is the best quarterback most years that he's in the league. Just as a look at here's a quarterback. Yeah. A lot of times you're going to go Peyton Manning over a Tom Brady or even a Drew Brees, I guess. Depends on what it is. Like depends what you want. Like I said, once again, you could have these arguments all freaking day long, right? But it's you have so many things that go on to it that it's like, who do you pick? And like I said, Tom Brady and Peyton Manning and Drew Brees and like all these other guys, it's hard to be the best quarterback in those years. Matt Ryan obviously had good years in those runs. Cam Newton obviously won an MVP at one point, which Patriot fans are like, where was that?
I'll say that Rivers was the 4th best quarterback in the AFC for a lot of years.
Yep.
And there was Peyton Manning from the South.
Yep.
There was Tom Brady in the East. There was Ben Roethlisberger in the North. And for a lot of the time, there was Philip Rivers and he was the top 4, and he ran into those other 3 quarteguarks. So whatever stats he had, that's what you have to put up.
And even his stats in the playoffs, none of them are bad. Like he's got, I think all of his stats are right there, if not better than Big Ben also, or somebody like that, right? Like that's just Big Ben's the easiest one to go against because it's like, look, here is a guy that is literally, you know, they were compared to each other. They were, you know, it's easy to go against 2 guys that are in the same draft class. You know, Big Ben, did he have other points where he was like, man, he's really good? Yeah. Could Big Ben also stay healthy? No. Right? Like every year, Big Ben's going to miss a game or 2, it feels like, if not more, because he's going to have something. That's just the way the guy played. And like I said, Philip Rivers, just for having terrible owners that never wanted to pay money, having terrible defenses, and then having every other issue you can name, not bringing back LT, not bringing back Vincent Jackson, not bringing back all these guys. You know, he obviously made a career with Antonio Gates and all these other guys too, right? Like he did what he had to, and like I said, had a hell of a career. And it's crazy to think that, like I said, it's weird to see. And me and Trevor talked about this many years ago. It's like one day our quarterbacks aren't going to be our quarterbacks anymore, and it's going to be really freaking weird. We like at that point we already had like a decade of them type of thing, or maybe 12 years of them plus, and we're like,
it's the guys that are starting to go to Yeah, the guys that are starting to go to the Hall of Fame, you grew up watching playing football.
Peyton Manning.
And
just got inducted, right? It's like,
the guys that are being drafted are sons of players we watched play football. And, to tie my last thought on Rivers, if Manning, Brady, and Roethlisberger get in the Hall of Fame, well, he had to play all three of those, and he generally won some and he lost some against those four quarterbacks.
Yep.
I don't know how he's not. I don't know how he doesn't
against the
become
Colts. To be honest, we had their number. Like we dominate the Colts somehow, but it was what it was. Like I said, Patriots are hard. Obviously, I saw it 2 years ago when we played them in the playoffs. Everyone's like, man, I think we beat Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Everyone's like, holy crap, they're gonna go all the way because they just dominated that guy. Yeah. And then we had Gus Bradley as our defensive coordinator, so it was. And Patriots were like, you guys are just going to stay out there with 7 defensive backs the entire game?
Cool.
Run it down the middle again. Let's go, people. Here we go. Straight ahead. Anyways, so we're going to get into the draft prospects. We talked about all that stuff probably a little longer than we expected, but I could rant about Phillip Rivers not being in the Hall of Fame all day long. I have one guy I follow that's a streamer, and him and I, like, he's a smaller streamer. He's a guy from LA, and he's from Oakland, like California. He's a Cali boy. Yeah. He's a Raiders fan. Hates Phillip Rivers. Hates him. It's the best thing in the world. Literally, we'll just like argue back and forth, and he hates him, and I'm like, Phillip Rivers would be the best quarterback in Raiders history, hands down, if he ever had to be there. And he's like, no, he wouldn't. I'm like, name one.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah, I'm like, name
one.
You
take Phillip Rivers over Derek Carr all day long.
Derek Carr, Rich Gannon, you name the list. Yeah. Like, I don't care who you name. Like, whatever, but it's what it is.
100%.
So the first guy we're going to talk about when it comes to the NFL draft prospects, we're going to start with Adam here. It's Alijah Vera-Tucker. He's a tackle, guard. It depends on how you see him in the NFL for USC. And we'll let Adam kind of kick it off with him and give us his opinions on what the guy.
Yeah, so cards on the table. I used to know every single draft prospect for the first 3 rounds. Being on the East Coast, it's a lot tougher to watch the pro day stuff on Total Access that starts at 5:00 in the afternoon in LA.
Yeah.
They don't have the same shows they used to. Obviously, COVID has affected things. I'm a lot busier with the podcast for the Wildcats. So I know a few things, and you gave me, 3 players to get on to talk about. So, we had success taking an offensive lineman, so I figured I'd give some love to the offensive line.
Love it.
Alijah Vera-Tucker, I think he's one of the top guards in the draft. I mean, he's a big mauler-type prospect. He's got a nasty side to him. He can get, if he needs to get out and run in a block, he can get pretty vertical pretty quickly. I watched a little bit of tape earlier today, just before I came on here, like a very little bit. And the few things I saw, he has an overshoot, like he kind of reaches.
Yeah.
I think as a guard, he can be saved by that as much to being a tackle. I think he's more of an inside scheme zone kind of run scheme guy. I think he's a guard. I don't think he's quite a.
Oh, 1 second. Your mic. I think I lost your mic. Did I lose you? Did I lose your mic?
Let me know when you can hear
there we
me.
go. You're good. You're back.
All right. Yeah, I blame Jeremy and Rogers' internet. Anyways, I don't know where I left off. I think he's a guard. I don't have his wingspan, and I think when you get into offensive linemen, wingspans is huge for tackles as opposed to guards because you're coming off the edge. His pass blocking it's all right.
Yep.
I see him as a left guard, and I think if I'm looking at teams for him, middle of the draft, the Giants could use offensive linemen.
Yep.
Saquon Barkley would love to run behind this guy. The Vikings, another team that
give them something. Just give them a little bit of offensive line help.
Yeah. And I think the other team, I don't know if he'll get to the Chargers.
Yep.
At what are you at? 15?
13, I think.
13. I think you might have to move up to get him a little bit, but if 4 quarterbacks go, that's going to push a lot of these players, especially the other 2 I'm going to talk about. That's going to push them down a bit. And there could be 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 4 and 1 more taken between 7 and 9. So he might fall to 13. I think he'd be a perfect fit in Los Angeles. I almost said San Diego.
Everyone does it. I do it 10 times a game.
Yeah. You know what? You have the pick in Herbert. You have the, I wouldn't call him a Cadillac yet. Yeah. You have the nice car. Protect it. Put the insurance on it. Protect the investment. I think the Chargers. So I see him in the mid first round grade on him, and I think the Chargers would be the best fit for him with Alijah Vera-Tucker.
Yeah. No, I watched him too a little bit. Same thing. Like I kind of got Adam. I said like, who are you picking? I just want to know the names. And so like the same thing. Like,
yeah,
I don't watch a lot of college football, mostly because I can't stand, watching a 72 to 15, 14 game. Like to me, it's not entertaining. I don't know. Like I said, there's going to be some entertaining games. Yes. You're going to have games come down the wire. Yes. I understand it, people. Mm-hmm. I get it. You don't have to get my ass about this, but at the end of the day, when you're talking about all this stuff, you're like, there's just so much to it that I'm like, don't know if that's quite the right guy for when it comes to that. But yeah, like I go, when it comes to this stuff, like I start diving into it in April. Sometimes I do, like a lot of times I used to watch like the combine and stuff. Like you said, we're older now. Can't dedicate every Saturday and Sunday. I think the missus might kill us.
No.
They're like, hey, look, I'm going to spend 12 hours a day. Obviously, there's no combine this year. It makes things a little bit more difficult. All that stuff.
Yeah, it's much easier when there's a combine. Yeah. It's one weekend. And
combines give you some stuff, right? You can see that 3-cone. You can see that 40-yard dash. I always laugh at the pro days. I'm like, oh, so you're going to judge a quarterback on how he throws a ball against no coverage to a guy who's thrown for 3 years with no pass rush in a perfect situation with no.
Thank you. I have always said quarterbacks should have to throw at the combine.
Yeah.
Because you know what? When you hit the next level, you're not throwing to guys you've been throwing to for 3 years.
No.
Thank you for agreeing. I have always, when quarterbacks don't throw, they want to wait for their pro day.
Yeah.
No, you throw the combine against guys you don't know.
And at some point when you get into all this, you're talking about guys that, like you said, you got to look at the game film at the end of the day. Like that's what it is. And we'll get into a guy later, that one of the guys I have that, it's hard to, sometimes it's harder to evaluate, right? If they're not playing a high level competition, if they're not playing, they're not doing other things. I understand sometimes it's a little bit harder to, evaluate some of these guys. Like I understand it 100%. But at the end of the day, watching all this stuff, it's like, yeah, okay, it's hard to evaluate those guys, but it gives you kind of an idea of who they are. And when I watched Alijah Vera-Tucker, he gets on the guys, and he's kind of got like a little bit of a nastiness, I guess, in the run game. And I found he was pretty good on the move. Not as good as an offensive tackle that we'll talk about later on here. But he's not the most athletic guy in the world, but he can get out in space, and he has to find his guy and whatever, right? But I think like you said too, I think he is probably more of a guard, just because when you're out on the outside, you're kind of by yourself, and it's really easy to be like, oh, look, squirrel. If you're not completely engaged, or guys are not completely right on you or pushing you or anything like that. And you get guys,
or as a rookie.
Or as a rookie, right?
You're going against guys that have been honing their craft and getting better and better and better.
Yeah.
It's a lot tougher. And a lot of tackles start inside. They learn the game, learn the footwork, learn whatever, and they move outside.
Yeah, and I like some people will say like guard and tackles are different. I understand they are completely different positions.
Yeah,
100%. I understand it. I do. But it's just like some guys, they might not have, if they get lost out there a little bit, it's hard to be on the edge. Like you're single coverage in one guy by yourself. A lot of the times, as a left tackle in the NFL, you're not expected to get that tight end help to chip block and this and that. Like,
no,
you're expected to be out there to handle them by yourself. So yeah, throw somebody at guard. Like you said, I think he's the middle to late type of thing. He'd be I think he's actually like my fourth tackle off the board when I was looking at other stuff. But he's, like I said, he's got a lot of the traits that you want. He's, that 300 pounds, he's 6'4", played against good teams out there, held up pretty good from the stuff that I've watched of him. Nothing really, didn't get beat too much. Sometimes he gets a little lazy, but that will happen with offensive tackles anyways, is they'll go to engage with you, and they'll kind of like play patty cake with you, but they don't like. He's just like, okay, well, the quarterback should have thrown the ball by now.
Yeah.
No. You can't guarantee that at all. Like that's not how it works. But like I said, I think throwing him at guard is a pretty good, easy way to kind of help him along early on in the years. And like I said, somebody that needs a guard, there's lots of guys, right? You just go down through the list. The Giants could use somebody. I know everybody just wants to give all these teams with young quarterbacks more and more and more weapons. I understand it. If you got guys out there to catch the ball and get separation, it makes it easier for the quarterback, 100%. But the Super Bowl was just won by a team, because if you just put them on a plane this year on how they perform, Patrick Mahomes is better than Tom Brady. Just as a look at the two players and who they are, that's just the way it is. Patrick Mahomes ran for literally 12,000 miles in the Super Bowl, running
508 yards.
Yeah,
is what he ran.
There you go, 508 yards, running for his freaking life, still delivering balls on a dime to guys that were dropping the balls. Yeah. Literally, the best one was the sidearm throw as he's like diving, and the guy like hits the guy in the helmet and he drops it. But like I said, you watch that. You watched against the eventual first overall pick. This is not a segue, by the way, or transition. This is just talking about him. But Trevor Lawrence against Ohio State this year in the college football championship, he got destroyed. It's because his offensive line. It was the same thing as Patrick Mahomes. You just watched it in the two biggest games of the year when it comes to football, in both college and professional. If you can't block the guys on the other side, it doesn't matter who you have for quarterback over there. Yes, you could be a Peyton Manning and get people out there quick and shift guys and know what you're doing. Yes, that can happen. But if you don't have that extra couple seconds to let a play develop, or you're always running, it's not going to change anything. You're not going to win the game. Like, you win the game in the trenches, and that's how you win it. And a lot of these guys have to understand, for their quarterbacks that are young, build the line, build it up, make it good, so they have some time to sit back there and throw and pick them apart. But next player I'm going to go to is Mr. Jalen Waddell. This guy is ridiculous. Obviously was injured for a lot of this season. Didn't play, came kind of back in the final game. And, because a lot of the talk is about Devontae Smith, and we'll get to him eventually in this whole thing. He is extremely talented himself, maybe overshadowed because he's got the physique of a 12-year-old boy. That might be half the issue. But
when he grows into his body.
Yeah, when he grows into it eventually. But Jalen Waddell is just, I said, coming off a big injury, wasn't healthy for a lot of the year. But he did play. Like I said, showed a lot that he wanted to come out and play that last game. He was only really involved in one play, I think. I think he only had one catch or two catches that game. Mm-hmm. But it was enough to show, like, hey, guys, like, I'm here for you all. I want to win this with you. Let's go get it. Which just shows you, like, how good that team as a whole was, that you can afford to put him out there. But when Jalen Waddell, the things I kind of watched a couple different games for him. I always kind of try to watch a couple just because anybody can watch a highlight film.
Yeah,
it's easy to do it, and I can find you, a highlight film to make Jake Fromm look good. Doesn't mean that he should be a starting quarterback in the NFL, or Christian Hackenberg or whoever you want. Like, I can go through the names. I can make you a list of stuff that makes that guy look really good. But you got to see how the guys play in all situations. He can do everything. So he has a little bit of the routes. He can do that. He's at major speed. But unlike a guy like a Henry Ruggs, who was on his team the year before, which still blows my mind how that guy was the first receiver taken off the board last year. He was the fourth best receiver for Alabama last year, and he went first overall in the NFL draft for the receivers off the board. Makes no sense to me. But at the end of the day, he can actually play football, unlike Henry Ruggs. He can actually know.
Well, where did Henry Ruggs go?
He went to the Raiders. They love speed.
Yeah, you know why he was the first? Height, weight, speed.
Yeah, just
all they draft.
I want somebody that runs a 4.240. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I said they have all this other stuff. They have all these other intangibles. They do use him on like screen plays a lot. They'll use him on end arounds. They'll use him on jet sweeps. They'll use him on all that stuff. And he's very talented. And he gets you get him in space, and he definitely can make it, make an extra, take a 5-yard play and make it into a 30 or 40 real quick. But he will find like the soft spots and coverages and stuff. Loves his easy slants, loves all this stuff. And obviously you're playing for Alabama, so your quarterback's probably going to be pretty decent. Your offensive line's probably going to be pretty decent. Your defense isn't going to give up much points, and you have other receivers out there that are pretty good. This all, running game that works good. You have all these things that kind of work for you. I understand it, people. I understand why people might give, Alabama receivers and some of these big school receivers a little more kind of crap because it makes it easier, and I understand it. Yep. But he plays on the outside. He does all this stuff. The only thing I kind of have written against him is sometimes he takes like the unnecessary punishment. Like just instead of just going out of bounds, he wants to try to like juke back in for that extra like 5 yards, and it's like, just don't. It's not worth it. You'll realize in the NFL, hits hurt, and like obviously you've done it your whole career. Obviously, you know how it feels, buddy. You know it's a terrible thing, but getting hit over and over and over again, it's not worth it. Just to show that guy that you're tougher than him, so you can kind of give him a shoulder as you're going out of bounds. Yeah, like just don't bother. And then, like I said, it's the thing of a playmaker, right? He's gonna try to get cute for those extra yards, so he's gonna get there and he's gonna be dancing with the cornerback. He's gonna try to get in the open, try to cut back for an extra 5 or 10 yards, right? Try to wheel it back. It's gonna happen. That's just what these playmakers do. It's hard to tell somebody just look north to south, because if he just went north to south all the time, he probably wouldn't have the highlight tape, right? And he'd probably have less yards than what he has, right? So it's some win some and lose some when it comes to that stuff. But he locates the ball well. Like I watched a couple things, like the ball goes up and he's tracking it the whole way, and like he'll adjust for it in the air and stuff. So he's locating it well, and even with the blocking, like if it's run games or other guys are getting it on screens and stuff like that, he'll actually block. Like it's he's not the biggest guy. Like he's not a DK Metcalf. No, he's not a AJ Brown or one of these guys that are just monsters out there. But he doesn't shy away from it, which I also kind of enjoyed as a receiver. It's kind of cool to see. Like I said, if you're gonna play in the NFL, you got to block. It's the way it is. You can't shy away 100%. From it. So I don't know if you've watched him at all, but
I've watched, again, very limited tape.
Yeah.
I think from a lot of things that I've watched and read, Jamar Chase from LSU is kind of he didn't play in 2020,
but he's so good. And I think if he had played in 2020, we're not really talking about Waddle or Devontae Smith. It's funny. I think it's interesting that Jalen Waddle said if he would rather have passes from Tua or Jalen Hurts, he picked Mac Jones. Yeah.
Because Alabama had Tua, Hurts, Mac Jones. Like that's most schools' actual history of their whole school to have 3 top first-round quarterbacks. They had back-to-back. I kind of like it. Who do you have? Where do you have him fitting? Like what?
I have him. So for him, I don't know. I go back and forth between him and Smith, just because it's so hard. Like Smith can. You just see it that Smith can be so good. He's just so dynamic. He's such a good route runner. He's so explosive. Like the guy just puts up 200, 300 yards every game in college, which, yes, you're playing against other college players, but like, guess what? They're not all bad. Not every, like, that's my thing against for hockey or anything. Like Wayne Gretzky put up a lot of points. Yep. Well, he was the area he played in. Yep. Then why the fuck didn't everybody else do it? Right? Like, why isn't there anybody within half the points of Wayne Gretzky in his career if everybody else did, right? So that's the thing. Like, was everybody putting up 200 yards receiving against every other big, team? Nope. Was he? Yep. So it's one of those things. It's, for me, I kind of see him, like, I don't think he goes to Detroit. I don't think he goes to a Carolina, because I hope Carolina is kind of smart and kind of tries to help build that line. And if they're going to try to do something with Darnold, just give the guy some more options. You could give him a pass catcher. Obviously, there's guys, they've lost guys over the last couple of years. They still got more there. They got a couple guys. They got Chris McCaffrey, who's halftime. He's a receiver. But I don't know if you could look at the Giants, give them another weapon for Daniel Jones to kind of say, like,
I think the Giants are the fit.
Yeah. You get Kenny Galladay.
I think it's either the Lions or the Giants.
Shepard. Like, you get Sterling Shepard, you get Galladay, but to have that explosive X factor receiver, you could give him to him. Yeah, past that, like, I don't think the Patriots going to stay where they are. No. Like the Cardinals, no. Raiders, no. Like, it's one of those weird things that once you get past that, the Panthers, Broncos aren't going to take them. Cowboys aren't going to take them. You get the Giants, maybe the Eagles. Maybe they say, let's put you back with Jalen Hurts. I don't know if they ever played together. The Chargers aren't going to take him. I can't see it. Vikings, probably not. They got Jefferson and Thielen. That's two pretty good receivers. I don't think you have to add a third one there. So after that, like I said, there's kind of a little spot where he's really only got like one or two places he can go once you get past the first, once you get past the Lions and Carolina. It's the Eagles, and then it's probably nobody again until you hit the Dolphins. So from 8 to 18, there's that 10 spots where it's like Eagles or bust for a draft pick, right? It's kind of, unless, obviously you could have trading back and trading up and stuff, right? Yeah. It happens, but just the way it sits right now, that's kind of the only spot. Eagles could definitely use them too, but it depends on what the Eagles want to do, right? The Eagles have so many holes, which
I think the Eagles need to fill the offensive line before they start filling wide receivers. I think I would pick the Lions. I think they're the perfect spot for either Chase, and I don't think we'll talk about one of your picks, number 5 that I have penciled in. I think Chase goes 6 to the Dolphins, and I think it's Waddle at 7 because the Lions lost both their wide receivers. So Goff needs somebody to throw to.
100%.
And I think, he doesn't need the 12-year-old 200 yards splash play guy. He needs a wide receiver that's well-rounded. And I think Waddle at 7 makes a ton of sense.
Yep. The only thing I wonder there is just a new coach. He's like Motor City Dan Campbell, and he just loves, like, in his press conference, he was talking about
breaking kneecaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird press conference. Like, really, really weird. But it's one of those things. I don't know if he, like, that flashy skill position player fits what he wants to kind of start building this franchise around. But maybe it is, right? You never know.
Yeah.
I also think Detroit's kind of in that section right now where they're not expecting to be good. I think they're, when you trade away Matt Stafford to get draft picks and get Jared Goff, I think you kind of understand that, okay, we're probably going to be rebuilding here a little bit. Now a rebuild in the NFL could be a 2-3 year thing, right? It doesn't take a long time, and it's never bad to have a bona fide receiver at that point. And they've done good. Goff's done good with guys that were speedy. He had Brandon Cooks. He's got Cooper Kupp, which is underrated. Robert Woods. He's got all these guys that were very good receivers. So maybe that's a good spot for him too. So moving on from Jalen Waddell, we got the top linebacker in this year's draft, and that is Mr. Micah Parsons. All right. Yeah. Okay. You're going to go with that one. All right. I was going to go Farley, but I can go Micah Parsons. I can do that. Again, this of my 2 players left, both didn't play in 2020, opting out. 6'2", 245 linebacker from Penn State. I mean, he's the top linebacker. He's a physical freak.
Yeah. Edge rusher. He was an edge rusher before linebacker. When I watched a little bit of tape, and again, I'm the guy that you just ripped on for anybody can show a highlight tape. I literally just watched highlight tapes of him because why not?
Guess what? We didn't have a whole lot of time for this.
Yeah. He reminded me of a very good linebacker that we got in Tampa Bay that can go sideline to sideline and make a difference, and that's Devin White.
Yep.
And if you need to wonder what Devin White does, just look at how close that game against Washington was and look at the rest of the game. Yep. Taylor Heineke doesn't have the game he has with Devin White. Yep. But anyways, it would have been nice to see him play in 2020. I had to go back to 2019 to watch some tape.
Yep.
I mean, he's young, he's raw. He needs a team that he can sit behind and kind of learn from. My landing spots for him, I don't think he gets out of the top 10. I got the Lions because, like you said, I mean, Dan Campbell, that seems like a break your kneecap kind of player.
100%.
I'd do a disservice to my best friend if I didn't say Denver.
Yep.
He really wants Micah Parsons. I keep telling him Denver's moving up for a quarterback, but he wants Micah Parsons in that Vic Fangio defense. He's building that thing. That's what he is. He would slot right in and play right away. And I think the New England Patriots, I think if Bill Belichick can get him in that system, a sideline-to-sideline linebacker. Now, I said he's a top 10 pick, which means New England's going to have to come up to get him.
Yeah.
But I could see I could see a New England-Denver trade, although if he's sitting there on the board at 8 and Carolina doesn't go with him, I don't think Denver's moving. But, New England, Dallas in that top 10, Dallas comes back, gets some picks. I see New England being there because they had so many opt-outs last year, and they're getting a lot of their guys back, so he'd be able to sit in behind, take his time, and when he's effective in limited playing time, and sideline to sideline, Bill Belichick will – Bill Belichick loves to shut down an option.
Yeah.
So if he can have a linebacker, maybe not this year, but next year that says, hey, that tight end, take him away. I mean, we saw what Devin White and Lavonte David did to Travis Kelce.
Yeah,
just basically shut him down. And if Bill can have that where he says, hey, you shut down that guy and that allows Hightower to be what Hightower is.
Yep.
I think your buddy, your co-host there would be quite ecstatic if they moved up to get him.
Yeah, try to build that defense up to kind of what Bill Belichick likes. And I think that would be a good spot for him because I think he, like you said, he'd fit in well into the Devin White position. And I say that because I don't see this guy as a Luke Kuechly, as a Lavonte David, as a Bobby Wagner. Those guys just, when you're comparing him as a raw freak athlete, he is that. And is he the best linebacker out of all the rest? Probably. He really is.
Yeah.
But when you look at it as a whole, he might not see the game as quickly as what those guys do. And guess what? There's not a whole lot of freaking people that do, by the way. Like Lavonte David, Luke Kuechly, Bobby Wagner, those guys are special. They're special for a reason, right?
Yeah.
Lavonte David, those guys are literally generational talents at the position, right? These are guys that you just get to watch for all these years. Luke Kuechly obviously retired early because of concussions and stuff, but you guys have got to watch Lavonte David, and he's been just as good as Luke Kuechly. May not have got the praise of a Luke Kuechly, but he was just as good as Luke Kuechly probably all those years. And they just see the game easier, right? They're the ones making the calls. They're the ones making the adjustments, for the defense as the time goes on. They're the one calling stuff out because they can see the game. It's a chess match, right? Like it's, you used to watch it with, I'm blanking on his name right now. Brian Eric, like one of the best things you could always watch.
Urlacher and Ray Lewis.
Urlacher and Ray Lewis versus like Peyton Manning, or like you're just watching them and the the quarterback's adjusting one thing on one side and then the defender's just adjusting the other way because he understands it, right? It's just that next level of intellect when it comes to that stuff. I think Micah Parsons is very similar to a guy that I had drafted for my team last year in a Kenneth Murray, where he's just a freak. Hey, there's a guy that's going to run that way. Go get him and tackle the shit out of him. And he's such a raw.
That's exactly what Devin White is. That's exactly
just wind him up
Parsons.
And be like, and go. And he's going to go and he's going to get him. And he's got the moves that he can get past the guys that are trying to get out on the edge and block you on sweeps and stuff. Whether it's a tight end, whether it's a tackle or a guard, whatever's whoever's pulling, he's got enough moves and he can kind of get around the guys to make the tackles. He's a very, very, very good linebacker prospect. Is he refined? No. Nope. And like you said,
would he be if he played 2020? Probably. He would be in the top 5 for sure.
But to be fair, I don't blame any of these guys that are opted out.
100%. No.
Guess what? Micah, like with him and Chase, and you're talking about Another guy that we're going to talk about up here in a minute. These are guys that their draft stock was already cemented. No matter what they did, actually, I guess 4 of the guys we talked about, their draft stock was already cemented in where it was. You know, Parsons was going to be a first-round draft pick. You know, now if he goes out and tears an ACL, if he goes out and looks bad for some reason, because you get to watch, it's one of those things, right? The more tape you get to watch on a guy, the more you go, oh, didn't notice that before. Oh, the offensive coordinator kind of scouted for that now. They know that player a little better. They know his weaknesses. You kind of see that stuff. Like, I don't blame any of these guys for sitting out, because all what could have happened is Parsons going to go up in the draft and become a top 5 pick, you know, because of the way he plays? Probably not. Right? It's probably not going to.
I think he would have benefited the most from playing.
Yeah.
Chase wouldn't have. Chase was fine because Chase wasn't playing with Joe Burrow anymore.
No.
Right?
Playing a worse at offense, right?
Yeah.
Yes, you have all the intangibles, but you're not going to go up. Like any of these guys, not to the point that it's worth the risk of, okay, well, if you tear an ACL or you get hurt or if you look bad, the other option, instead of being a top 10, top 15 pick, is all of a sudden you're a 2nd-round pick or a 3rd-round pick or whatever it is.
Jalen Smith.
Yep.
2-3 years ago, Jalen Smith he was the number 5 linebacker. He was a top 5 pick. Injures himself in the one of the bowl games.
Yep.
And Dallas takes him in the 2nd round, way before anyone thought he would.
Yep.
And he had to have nerve surgery. And he's a starting middle linebacker. So, and I don't blame any of these guys, not even draft stock.
Nope.
You know, if they didn't want to risk COVID, I had 0 issue with anybody taking a year off
100%.
At all. I mean, I wish I could have taken a year off.
Yeah, me too. Would have been great. So that was what I kind of saw on him.
Just before you get to your your next player, you brought up Jake Fromm. Do you know what his job was, speaking of COVID last year? You know what Jake Fromm's job was?
What?
Sit in a room and don't go anywhere. His job was sit in a room and don't get COVID because of the Denver situation.
Yeah.
They needed an extra quarterback because you couldn't bring anybody in on the practice squad.
Yeah.
So Buffalo literally said, stay at home. We're going to pay you to stay at home. We're going to send you film. You're going to study because if anything happens to Josh Allen or Matt Barkley, you have to be a quarterback. So we don't have a wide receiver playing quarterback. So his job this year in Buffalo was stay home and stay healthy.
That's funny.
Pretty sweet gig.
I kind of wonder if that was the same thing with the Colts too, with Phillip Rivers and Jacoby Brissett, because Jacob Eason didn't dress for most of the games either. And I kind of wonder now that you say it that makes sense, right? Because like that Denver game was an absolute shit show. Meanwhile, of course, they got to push back the games for the Ravens and the Steelers and all these other guys. But
that was
Denver.
I think the Denver thing was a flat out. Their quarterbacks didn't wear masks in the room.
Yeah, they were.
And so the NFL went, well, you broke it. Yeah. You're playing. You made your bed. Go sleep in it.
Yeah, that was.
But let's get on to your guy.
Yeah. So the next guy I had after Micah Parsons is one Mr. Penei Sewell. Yeah, that is the best offensive tackle. And well, I say that, but I might get to that later on in another episode when we get to draft. But Penei Sewell, he is everything you want in a left tackle. Just watching tape, he is just a freak. It's kind of the easiest way to put it. He's 6'4". He's 330 freaking pounds, and he doesn't look it, which is kind of a scary thing to say. He's just solid. He sat out 2020 also, just like the rest. Same thing. Justin Herbert leaves. Yeah, it's probably good. You know, you're getting a top 10 guy. You know, you blocked for last year. Do we really want to push it again? Same thing. Do you want to get injured? Everything else. But yeah, so the way I saw it, I watched a couple games on him. I watched him against essentially some good guys. So it's 2019 tape, so it's Auburn. Auburn last year had Marlon Davidson, who ended up getting drafted by the Atlanta Falcons. And they also had this guy named Derek Brown, who was a top 10 pick over there. And that was the first game of the season for the Ducks last year. And he was, like I said, super athletic. If you're trying to get him on the edge, he's getting out there, and he's getting out there super fast. And like, it just doesn't make sense of, like, I think they said like, well, his numbers on the 3-cone, are right around the middle of the pack for offensive linemen. It's like, okay, well, bet if you actually check for somebody over like 320 pounds for an offensive lineman, that actually puts them into like the 98th percentile of like how those guys doing those kind of drills. Like I said, there's not a whole lot. I was gonna say there's to talk about everything good about him. So that game I found the only thing he didn't do is on the rush. He'll get out there and he'll get his hands on you. And when he gets his hands on you, you're it's over. He's just that much more physically imposing on these guys than anybody else. The problem I had is I found he wasn't like super engaging. So like he'd get his hands on you and then he kind of just play patty cake with you for a little bit. And then all of a sudden the guy's disengaging and kind of running somewhere else around him and stuff. It was kind of stuff like that kind of threw me off. But he did that. I even had like play patty cake. There's a couple times. There was one that there was a 4th and 1 against Auburn and they didn't convert it. And I found it was because he kind of just whiffed on his block. He kind of just went to kind of give the guy a shove. Like, I don't know. I find when he's on the edge and he's left on the edge by himself. But I find like when I watched the other guard prospect or the tackle prospects from last year, like a Tristan Wirfs that you guys got, like a Becton, like all these other, freaks that he's kind of compared to, I find he kind of gets lost a little bit in it. And I find sometimes does he have every potential to be a Trent Williams? Does he have every potential to be, name insert, really good offensive tackle out here, Tunsil, whoever it is? He's got the potential to be all of it. But I don't know if he can do it. Against the Rose Bowl, against Wisconsin, I still had that he was a left athletic, still had some flyby blocks when he gets into the second level. And then I said he held up decent pass protection. They didn't throw a whole lot that game, but I found he was getting lost a little bit on switches. But, that will happen at the same time, right? And they said he's always on the left. He's like left on an island. He's got everything you could want. And like I said, when he wants to bury somebody, he buries them. They're going, they're wiped out of the play. But at the same time, he doesn't always want to bury these guys. And maybe it's because he kind of sees himself as I can just play with these guys. But I find like sometimes he just has to learn to finish his blocks. And it's kind of like what you said. So everyone just has this guy locked in as the number 1 left tackle. He's been locked in all year. And I kind of wonder, I'm like, did you guys watch some of this tape? Because another guy that will be brought up later on in the next episode, maybe the episode after, is another guy that's a big left tackle. And I actually like him more just from what I've seen.
Rashawn Slater?
That might be the guy. To me, he's...
Oh, I see what you're doing there. The old hook to bring him back. I got you. I got you.
Play a little bait and hook.
I got you. I got you.
He might be the better one of the two. And like I said, does Sewell have the ceiling? Is his ceiling higher? Yes, 100%. His ceiling is higher. But is his basement lower? Yeah. By the way, it's there's a chance that he really struggles at the next level. Just because of, like I said, finding he gets lost and stuff. He's actually a guy that, like your guy, I wouldn't mind seeing him go to guard. I think if you put him on a Cincinnati, everyone just says, well, he's going to go to Cincinnati and he's going to become the left tackle of the future for Cincinnati. And I kind of wonder, I'm like, do you guys not remember that Cincinnati, took a tackle in that draft? They got Jonah Williams. I'd leave him at left tackle. I'd grab Sewell if I was them, and I'd put him at left guard. Just because when you're left on your own, it's easy to kind of get, like I said, look a squirrel and kind of go that way. Whereas in guard, the game comes to you, where you don't have to step out to that guy. You don't always have to do it. I find sometimes he gets lost, and that's where I kind of think maybe as a guard he might fit actually better. Now, I'm not saying he has to be a guard for his whole career, but maybe he does, and that's not a bad thing. I don't think the Colts are crying because they have Quentin Nelson at guard. I don't think the Cowboys are crying because they have Zach Martin at guard.
But those two players were guards, though. Like,
yeah, 100%.
They were set up to be. I've had Sewell penciled in at 5 to Cincinnati. I had him. I mean, they just signed Riley Reef, which I think allows them to maybe not go Sewell as much. But I still, like every quarterback, just go protect your investment. You got the Cadillac. Go put the insurance on it. I mean,
yeah, like I said, I think Riley Reef. I think Jonah Williams is going to be your left tackle. I think that's just the way it is. Yeah. The guy was a top 10 pick. He went 11th overall to Cincinnati 2 years ago. He gets injured in the preseason, has to sit out that entire season. You lose that. He gets back this year. So this is kind of his rookie year. So now he's also coming back from an injury. He's really got to try to catch up on everything. And he still played pretty good, I found, in the tapes in the games I've watched of him. I think you put Riley Reef at right tackle and you put Sewell at left guard, and you're like, wow,
not a bad offensive line. We are
pretty good now. We got Tyler Boyd out there. We got T. Higgins. You could look at other guys for Cincinnati. You could look at a Pitts to just say, here, Joe Burrow, here's another toy. And trust me, as a Chargers fan, the farther offensive tackles can fall in this NFL draft, I will take it. As a guy that's watched Sam Tevy and just all these other terrible guys, play in the last couple of years, I would like to see somebody like a Sewell, or if we get over Rashawn Slater, I will take that all day long. But like I said, I say all this stuff, and I know it sounds like I'm coming off as a guy that's like, Sewell sucks or Sewell sucks. Not the case. I said, very good guy, still played extremely well. And like I said, Oregon ran a lot of quicker stuff a lot of times, but there was times, like there was a touchdown that they had against, I think it was Auburn actually. And, it's a big throw for Herbert. He gets it. The guy is big tight end. He catches in the end zone. It's an awesome catch. It's an awesome touchdown. But he actually gets destroyed rolling out to his left because Sewell was nowhere near the defender. He's chasing the guy like, oh God, don't hit my quarterback. Oh God, don't hit my quarterback. Which, like I said, for a guy that's supposed to be so good, there was too many times on his tape when I watched him play against very good teams that he was turned back and looking at the quarterback as the ball's being thrown, which is not what you want to see. Like I said, when I watched Wirfs, when I watched Andrew Thomas, when I watched Mekhi Becton last year, that's not something I saw in those guys. That's not what Mekhi Becton was ridiculous last year. He's a monster. But like those guys are guys that you just put them out there. And like I said, that's why I liked Wirfs as a right tackle for a lot of people, because I saw it and I saw that this guy is that good. And I just seen that. I think that's just kind of the same thing. You got to work around it, but they weren't getting beat. They weren't getting beat off the first step. They weren't getting beat by these spin moves or these slowly progressing moves type of thing. Where I find Sewell, yes, he has all the intangibles. He can be amazing. He's just going to need to be coached up. So to see him go to somewhere that might need it, if he fell for some reason, not that he's going to, I understand that. But if he can fall to a place like a Dallas, that would be ridiculous. Not that I ever think he's going to fall to number 10, but because I think at that point, Miami probably takes him. Detroit would take him. Like I said, there's a lot of like all these teams are gonna take him. But like to see him as a place where he could go, that he could really get the offensive line tutoring and to kind of progress his game to the next level. I think that's where it's, and it doesn't matter what team you play for, what position you play for. It all matters. It's great that you get drafted in the NFL, but where you get drafted means so much, and how they're able to develop you. So it's kind of what it is. But
the only way that you had mentioned, instead of taking Sewell, they take Kyle Pitts, and by they I mean Cincinnati. Yeah. The only way that Kyle Pitts falls to Cincinnati for me is if Atlanta trades out of 4, because I think you're going to put Kyle Pitts on that offense, and Atlanta, the last time they were up this high, they grabbed Matt Ryan. They were never up this high again until they traded for Julio. I think they're not ready to get rid of Matt Ryan yet. So I think if there's a team that comes up for a quarterback, then Cincinnati has its pick. If they take Kyle Pitts, which I mean that's Joe Burrow's best friend as much as a left tackle is, he's not falling past Miami, and Miami can't get to the stage fast enough to put that card in for
no, and like I said,
Sewell.
it's hard, and it's one of those drafts where it's like I said, there's enough guys out there. Like I said, you're gonna have 4 quarterbacks in the top 10. That's just what's gonna happen, right? You're gonna have 3 quarterbacks in the top 3, right? Between San Fran, Jacksonville, the Jets, like you're gonna have 3 in the top 3. That's unheard of, right? Yeah. So to have this much movement, to have this much, we need a quarterback. Like I said, and then you have everybody else. You got Chase, you got Waddle, you got Smith, you got Parsons, you got Pitts, you got him, you got
Slater. Yeah, Atlanta's sitting pretty.
And then we're gonna have a guy. We can transition to that. The guy that you want to talk about next, which he could be the first cornerback off the board, was Mr. Farley.
Yeah, so 6'2", 207. So early in this process, it was him and Patrick Surtain, 1-2.
Yep.
Greg Newsome, the second, has come back in. Chasey Horn. I see those two more of zone guys. Caleb Farley and Surtain are more man guys. Again, another guy that opted out. Very athletic, very fast. My buddy Clint, big Broncos fan. Farley is a Vic Fangio guy. He's man. He has great ball instincts.
Vic Fangio's pants just got tight listening to you talk about that.
Yeah, I know. He's a smaller type guy, so he's not great in run support, which in this league you need to be. Your corners need to hit, and your secondary needs to hit. So he'll learn that as he gets going. I haven't watched any tape on him, so it's only notes I'm reading from other stuff. If I'm being honest, I use the website, the draftnetwork.com. You can actually do mock drafts of your whole, like all 7 rounds. You can have trades. It's actually one of the coolest websites for it ever. They've got him mocked as a starting outside corner.
Yep.
So if I'm looking at teams there, obviously Vic Fangio is one. Another team that lost both their corners is Dallas. They play a lot of man. They could use a corner. They got beat a lot over the top there. And I think the other one to pair opposite Chris Harris Jr. Would be the Chargers to take him. I think Dallas and the Chargers are the best fit, because I think given between Parsons and Farley, I think Denver would take Parsons. So I actually, it was Denver and Dallas as Surtain and Farley. And so Dallas fits. They've got no corners. They got beat over the top. I think I saw a stat sometime in the year, like 40% of the deep balls were over the corner, like not over the linebacker. So they got beat a lot. I mean, they got beat a lot. Yeah. Talk about a guy that was an MVP for his team, Dak Prescott. He goes down, the whole thing, the whole ship goes down. Got Andy Dalton.
What do you mean, Andy Dalton? I kind of made a joke. Andy Dalton is officially one of the top 5 quarterbacks in Bears history. He's yet to play a snap, but
he got paid because Dak Prescott went down. But
and he got paid. He got paid because he's competent. That's all the Bears wanted, and that's all. Which is sad, because that's all the Bears been looking for.
Yeah, they just kept swinging and missing, and
they're like, we got Nick Foles, Rex Grossman, Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is probably actually the best quarterback in Bears history.
He's one of them. Yeah, maybe other than Jim McMahon, who won a Super Bowl back in the '80s.
Yeah,
but that was a defense that took that team. Those are the top teams. I mean, you just touched on. You got to be in the right system. You got to be on the right team. You talk about, there's no more evidence of being on the right team at the right time than the 3 quarterbacks in Trubisky, Mahomes, and Watson.
Yep.
I will go to my grave. I will die on the hill. If Patrick Mahomes is a Bear, Patrick Mahomes isn't Patrick Mahomes.
No, he's not.
If Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes because he was with Andy Reid, Nagy, and
get to sit for a year.
Yeah, and Bieniemy or Patrick Mahomes doesn't sit for a year. He doesn't make Andy Reid look great. Nagy doesn't get the job in Chicago, so now Mahomes is with, I don't even know who was the coach in Chicago, but it wasn't.
It's not Lovey. I can't remember who was been there.
It was between those two, but even Houston, like
I'm going through. I'm like Lovey Smith, no. Mark Trestman, no. Whoever.
I think we're too far past whoever that was, but I mean,
we're way too old for that.
Same with Watson, right? Like if Trubisky's in Houston and Watson's in Kansas City, Watson is putting up those crazy numbers. So it always matters the team you go to. That's why, I always hate going the what if drafts because you could take a guy from the 7th round that was unbelievably or unsigned, but he was not on draft board. So he was not going to be drafted in the 1st round, 5th overall, and put up great numbers. So
I will die on the hill that I think Josh Rosen is actually still a good quarterback. I know it's hard to believe, but I think that guy got one of the raw steals in history. I remember watching him play for the Cardinals. He had a center one game. The center could not get him the ball. He couldn't snap the ball and get it into the quarterback's arm range. He was literally up, down, side to side, picking up balls in the dirt. I was like, you literally just put this guy in one of the worst offensive systems possible.
Yeah.
Terrible
and I think you might be the only one on that hill.
I'm just
including the teams that have him.
Yeah.
And Tampa had him for like 3 months on the practice squad.
Hey, guess what? That's because they were worried about COVID. They just had him sitting in a room.
100%. 100% they did. Yeah.
But no, it's one of those things. I think but you look at that situation, there's a top 10 quarterback. He gets a raw deal in with the Cardinals with a terrible offensive line. David Johnson goes down that year. Now he's at no running game. You got Larry Fitzgerald, and that's it for receivers at that time. And your defense was okay that year, but like I said, the coaching staff was before they brought in Cliff Kingsbury and all that other stuff. Then he goes from there. Where does he go after that? Well, he gets sent over to Miami. Okay, well, Miami decided, hey, we're going to tank for
Tua.
We're going to tank for Tua. Okay, well, what's going to happen there? So then now they're terrible and they're dog shit. So now you literally go from having one terrible situation with no talent to another one. And does Ryan Fitzpatrick go in and look better in Miami? Yes. Do you want to know why? Because the guy's a freaking veteran quarterback that's played
for a
decade, right?
Yeah, Fitzmagic is Fitzmagic. I don't care what anyone says.
Exactly, right? Like, is Fitzmagic a guy you want for 16 games? Probably not. But if you want like a really good 7 games section up for him,
or an off the bench guy,
Fitzpatrick
is your guy.
Great guy. But yeah, so like I said, I think at the end of the day, you have all these guys that are so good. Farley, I've kind of the same thing as you. I've watched a little bit on him. And have heard his name enough just where he was such a highly touted guy. Because when they started all opting out, that was the big thing. Oh, Chase is out. Oh, Sewell's out. Oh, Farley's out. Like, it's all these big name guys that are already kind of locked into a top 15, 20 draft position that they're all opting out because they don't see a way for them to go up or down or whatever, right? Does he fit a lot of guys' systems? No.
No, you
just because some guys like to run zone, right? Like he's not going to fit into an Oakland because now they have Gus Bradley. So he's not going to fit into an Oakland system, right? He's not going to fit into some other places. But like you said, a Vic Fangio, he's getting excited. He might fit into a Motor City Dan Campbell, but I don't know if he would quite fit into what they're kind of looking for. They just drafted Jeff Okudah last year. He might be a guy that falls a little bit, right? Like he might... And I think he's got, I may be wrong.
I think him and Trayvon Diggs in Dallas is a nice 1-2 outside corner set.
You need to stop the passing game. You got all the offensive weapons you could need, other than if you want to update that, that offensive line over in Dallas. Just because obviously Tyron Smith isn't Tyron Smith anymore. Travis Frederick, obviously retired. But you're not going to take a center, I don't think, in the top. There's not a center to take in the top 10, right? Unless they get the other tackle that they took a couple years back. Can't remember his name. Anyways, but they got a couple guys there, but nothing but sticking out. I think he'd make a good guy there. Maybe a Denver might take him to, like I said, just as a flyer type of thing. Like, I think he had something though with his hip, or he had some kind of injury that kind of has some people questioning him. Now I could be wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else, but I think I remember seeing something about him having some kind of injury. But when like I said, the highlight tape I've watched of him, he tracks the ball well. He moves quickly. He's everything you could want in a number one corner. And I think in the right situation, that guy is going to be very special. Now, could he also become an Eli Apple or one of these other guys that have been first round quarterback draft busts? Yeah. Like I think corner seems like the position out of every other one that is
hit or miss.
Is a hit or miss type of thing.
Yeah.
Like, not just like, oh, he's not very good. It's like, no, like that guy can't play in the league because he's that bad. So it's hard to say which one he's going to be. I think if he doesn't have injuries, I think it's going to be the latter, that he's going to be playing the league for a long time, but it's hard to say. Last guy, and we left one of the big ones for last. It's not Trevor Lawrence. We're going to leave Trevor Lawrence for another day. But
you don't even need to talk about Trevor Lawrence. Everybody knows Trevor Lawrence. He's going to the Jags.
So good.
He's good. You know,
he would have been the first overall draft pick 2 years ago when Kyler was the first overall draft pick, not Joe Burrow. He would have been the first overall draft pick when Joe Burrow was a draft pick. Yeah. He would have been the first overall draft pick for all these years because he's that good. Yeah. But like I said, we'll leave him for another episode. The other one is the guy that's rumored to go second overall. Maybe he's not the second best quarterback. That's up for debate. Maybe that's another episode also. But I'm just teasing all you guys here. But it is one Mr. Zack Wilson. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see the picture there now. But it's Mr. Zack Wilson. This guy looks like your high school quarterback. He's got the headband on. He's got the hair blown out the top.
High school? Yeah. Dude looks like he's in junior high. What is he, 8?
Oh, my God. So he's got, people talk about him having a crazy arm. So he's played for BYU for 3 years. He's 6'3". He's 210. He's so small.
And he doesn't look it.
No. He's, like I said, he plays well. So as a freshman, for him, quarterbacks went with actual stats. We kind of talked about a bunch of positions that didn't have a whole lot of stats, but as a freshman, he's played 9 games, 182 attempts for almost 1,600 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Okay. Next year, same thing, 9 games, 319 attempts, 23 or almost 2,400 yards, 11 TDs, 9 interceptions. So he kind of took a little bit of a step back that year. And then this year, in all 12 games, he put up went 247 for 336 on 336 attempts. That's 73.5% completion percentage. Almost 3,700 yards. He's 36.92, 33 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. And his yards,
not bad.
His yards per attempt were 11 yards per attempt. So this guy, they got him hyped up. They're like, look, this guy is the next Aaron Rodgers. Look at all the ways he can throw the ball, which this guy is super impressive. He does have all those ridiculous arm angles. Like he'll do the underhand, the underhand side throw. He'll kind of do like the off balance throw. He does all of it. Now people say he's got this crazy arm. I don't think he's got like a cannon of arm. Like you can't compare him to a Patrick Mahomes, to an Aaron Rodgers. And once again,
Allen.
We talked about this with when it came to, Parsons, when we're talking about, can't compare him to Luke Kuechly and all these guys. Yeah. Because those guys are ridiculous at their position. Right. I did find like a couple of his balls like kind of died off early, even on the deep balls. He throws a beautiful deep ball, don't get me wrong, but I found some of it kind of died off. But like I said, he's got all the flashy plays. And I think as a team, as a fan of this guy, you're going to be like, holy crap, this guy, I get to watch this guy every day. This is so exciting. This is so good that I get to watch this guy play and just watch the stuff. It's like a Matthew Stafford and other guys like that, where it's like, oh, so you can bend your arm that way and make that throw? Because you're like, then you start trying to think like, could I throw? No, I can't throw a ball like that. So he's got all those arm angles. Same thing for him. I tried to watch a couple of his games, trying to get an idea on him, because the main thing about him is the man was never pressured. So it's hard to kind of evaluate this guy because he had such a good pocket for all these things. He threw a lot of screen passes. He threw a lot of open passes. Now, is it open because it's just the defense? Is it open because he's throwing them open? It's a little bit of both, right? And it's not a bad thing that your guy's seeing the open receiver either. Don't get me wrong, but there are spots where it's just like, oh, there's nobody within 10 yards of that guy. Yeah, that's, but that was a Tom Brady thing forever with the Patriots, right? It's like, Tom Brady's, they're scheming it up so that Tom Brady is throwing to wide open guys. Sue the guy for hitting a wide open receiver. Yeah. Like, guess
that's the Alabama thing too.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys out there that can't do that, by the way, in the league, and that's why they're not NFL quarterbacks.
I.e. Carson Wentz.
Hey, he's going to come back this year.
No, he's not.
I have hope.
No, he's not.
Frank Reich. I think. Side note on him, this guy right here, a second. I think Doug Peterson is an absolute stooge. I think he's a terrible head coach, and I think every good thing about that Super Bowl run was done through Frank Reich. And when Frank Reich left, that's when that whole franchise went down the shitter. Mark my words, Carson Wentz is a top 10 quarterback this year. Nailing it.
Oh my God.
Anyways, on to the next.
Somebody watches the Pat McAfee show.
No. Pat McAfee talks shit about him. I actually liked him. Anyways, so I watched him against Coastal Carolina. So this is like 3/4 of the way through the season. Both teams are 9-0. This is the big game of the year. Coastal Carolina is obviously not a big school, but they played really good. Coastal Carolina was about the only team that actually gave them, troubles when it came to pressures. Now his stat line wasn't terrible. He was 19 for 30 for 240 yards, 1 TD, had an interception, but the interception came at the end of the half when he was just like throwing it up, trying to like make a play at the end of the half. I don't count that. That's like Phillip Rivers 101 for like just trying to throw it up to make a play at the end of the game. But like I said, so 1 interception, it is what it is. 10 rushes for 35 yards. He had decent moments. The 1 rushing touchdown. He has to go down. You hear it all the time. Justin Herbert had that issue at the start of the year. I think in Justin Herbert's first game, he like was going out of bounds and took on a linebacker from the Kansas City Chiefs like head on.
Yeah, I remember that.
I'm like, oh God, please go down. Just slide, go to bounds early, lose the extra 1 or 2 yards.
Do something else than what you just did.
Yeah, guess what? It's the first quarter. You don't need to get yourself murdered by a dumb linebacker here that's kind of just wants to posterize you. So he's got like I said, he's got all these passes. He's like, I have notes for that game. He was crazy pass across the body, lots of open passes in zone. Will definitely give his receivers a chance too. So he'll throw it up and say like, look, you're one-on-one with that guy. Hey, I'm throwing it up. I'm going to throw it to where you got to catch it. You got to catch it, but it's going to be in the right spot. Like he is accurate when it comes to a lot of that stuff, but he's not afraid to throw it. And like I said, he only threw 3 interceptions. Now, how much of that is his receivers actually being very good and, being able to come down with that stuff? That all matters, obviously. But I found when he was pressured, which, by the way, in the NFL, you're going to be pressured more than what you are at BYU.
Especially with the Jets.
Especially with the Jets. You got Becton there on the left side.
And that's
right side, you don't got anybody, by the way.
Yeah.
I think they have a guy that used to play for the Broncos. He's not very good.
George Fant.
That's exactly who it is. He's terrible.
Yeah.
But you wonder why Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. By the way, get ready to see some ghosts here, Zach. Yeah. But like I said, under pressure, I found he was inaccurate. He was throwing off, like I said, and not that he's bad on the run, because a lot of times he does get out of the pocket, i.e. a Patrick Mahomes, i.e. name a mobile quarterback or a racing quarterback that's good, right? They all get out of the pocket and they're all good. But it's different when you're deciding that you want to roll out that way. It's different when you have 5 yards between you and the defender to make that work. Zack Wilson, when he was under pressure, though, I found he was like, the ball was all over the place and he had some issues. So it's going to be kind of different to see how he adjusts to playing in a system in the NFL where you're not going to have the most time to throw. Like I said, a lot of the other tape, it's easier to see. Like you're playing against, they played against Boise at one point. He put up 21 for 27 for 359 yards, 2 TDs. He had an end zone fade. Could have been a little bit higher, whatever. And I put even like that one, maybe an NFL INT because he kind of just lobbed it up there. Loves his comeback. So like he loves the guys running 10, 15 yards, and like he throws with anticipation. So that's what you want to see in an NFL quarterback. You want to see the guy throw his guy open. Like he's letting the ball go. The guy's not even out of his route yet. Like he's throwing comebacks. The guy's still running down the field. It's out of his arms, out of his arm. And then after it gets 5 yards in the air, now the receiver's turning to come back and catch the ball, right? So it's the things you want to see. Super talented. Other than that, same thing I found against San Diego. I say he struggled when being pressured and was a little bit reckless. I thought he could have had at least 3 interceptions in that game. He had none. 26 for 35 for 303 and 3 touchdowns. Once again, I'm trying to talk bad about these stat lines. It's kind of freaking hard, by the way, when the guy throws 33 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. But that game alone, I thought he could have had 3 interceptions. But he does throw with anticipation. And like I said, I just find when he's pressured, he kind of holds that ball, tries to get through the little stuff, goes down. Like he's not trying to like bull rush through guys or something like that, but he doesn't have the body for it, right? He doesn't have that Josh Allen, that Justin Herbert, that, insert big, broad quarterback in here. He doesn't have that size to be able to do that, right? Like Josh Allen, the guy's a fucking human bowling ball. He just like bounces through all these guys. Like good on you, Radon. You got a quarterback, your first one since Jim Kelly essentially, but
pretty much. But it's working.
Yeah, but you just have that, like I said, super talented guy though. Like I don't really have a whole lot bad to say about him. It's just because you've never seen it. But it's just going to be, how does this guy react to pressure? And can he hold up? But if it's just like the talent the guy has, how he can throw the ball with different angles, all that stuff, the guy's going to be elite. He's probably going to make Pro Bowls. He's probably going to make some really electric plays in the playoffs if they ever get there. He's got the potential to be really good. And like I said, is he the second best quarterback? Should he be taken off the board that early? Maybe he should be the third. Maybe another guy out of Ohio State should be the second overall pick. But that's another debate. Both of them, like I said, I think they both do things very well. I think Zack Wilson throws a little more anticipation than Justin Fields. Like I said, but at the end of the day, it's funny that the draft starts at 2. That's the easiest way to put this draft, is the draft starts at 2.
The draft starts at 4.
Yeah.
I think it's Jack. I think it's Lawrence, it's Wilson, it's Mac Jones, and then it starts at 4. And I think Zack Wilson has all the intangibles to be a great player in his second contract with his second team, and it's nothing against him.
Yeah,
it's just the Jets, and some teams are just perennial losers, and the Browns have been that forever. You look at hockey, the Oilers have been that forever. The Jacksonville Jaguars have been that forever.
Yep.
Now, the Jets have gone out. They went and got Robert Saleh, who was that is a culture change.
Yeah, because Adam Gase is an idiot who's sitting there and gazing out of his eyes. Like
if Sam Darnold was traded to the Panthers, I don't know why. To me, that's a legit lateral move for Carolina. I don't understand it. But if Sam Darnold can turn his career around, Adam Gase should never get a job in football again, not just the NFL.
Yeah.
Football again. But I saw that throw that Wilson had on his pro day, and at that point I went, well, he's going 2 to the Jets.
Yeah.
But
it's hard because when it's that flashy, it's hard to turn your head away from it, right?
How many times? And he's going to throw that ball. He's going to throw that play because just right after that was done. I mean, the Panthers Twitter, when they got the trade, they showed Sam Darnold roll out, make that same kind of throw.
Yeah.
Actually, I think it was the Jets too. Like, hey, our quarterback can make that throw before they traded him.
Yeah.
So I think the draft starts at 4.
Yeah.
And it's just, is it 4 because it's Kyle Pitts, or is it 4 because it's insert team moving up to get a quarterback?
Yeah, and it said it's one of those things. The only thing I said, not a Jets fan. I'm a Chargers fan. I don't care about the Jets. I used to think Rex Ryan was funny. I thought he was a good, coach. Everybody can say otherwise, whatever. Did they take Mark Sanchez way too early? Yes. Did they win playoff games? Yes. They beat the Patriots. They beat the Colts. They went to conference championships 2 years in a row. Guess what? My team can't say that for a lot of things. But I do think getting Adam Gase, who's a stooge, out of there, good. Also having Joe Douglas in there. I think Joe Douglas as a GM is gonna need the time to actually put in the work to get to the point where he can be better. But I think Joe Douglas has a chance to be really good and can really build that team now that he's got the hold of it. Because I think last year they actually had a pretty good draft. They grabbed Becton, They got draft capital for Sam Darnold, which they probably should never got that much for him. They get Denzel Mims last year. They get enough guys. I think they can build around this. Even getting Corey Davis, I think that's a good free agency pickup to be a second receiver, right? So if I'm Zack Wilson, that's the only thing I can hope on, is that Joe Douglas is that good of a GM that he can elevate the team as a whole and make it better. But we're going to get out of here. Like I said, that's kind of our breakdown for all the draft picks. Later on before the draft, we're talking probably like the week of, we will be releasing an episode with a mock draft. Maybe I'll ask Adam for a top 10. We'll throw his up here too. But it's been good. Like I said, I appreciate you coming on. It's a lot to talk about. We obviously rambled on. It's when you have a new guest guy on the podcast. I've never had a guest on the podcast. Let's just put it out there. When I have a new guest, sometimes you ramble on about stuff like Philip Rivers. Sometimes you ramble on about stuff like the Super Bowl with them and everything else. Like, so you just get a different idea about it. But I really appreciate you coming on and
no worries, man.
Filling in. So anyways, I'll let you get to bed. Thank you guys for all listening. Make sure you check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you want to find us, or YouTube, obviously, if you want to watch this in a video and watch me make a lot of hand gestures and make funny faces and stuff. So anyways, hopefully you guys like this. And for Eric and Adam for the first time from the bench, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.